Hey, we're back, and hi everyone, Jason here, and I'm stoked to be joined by two awesome, amazing amp designers and even better blokes, Shea and Kyle. How you guys doing?
Really good. How you doing?
Awesome.
Pretty good.
Sorry guys, we were a little bit late onto the live stream because we just started chatting, and then all of a sudden it's like, oh, it's 10 minutes. we should go on. So
we've already got a lot of questions in the chat too.
Yeah, so just great to see a bunch of guys already in, right? This is awesome, and we'll have plenty of time, this evening, or it's actually, it's morning time still in Australia, but obviously evening in the US. So we will get, like, if you got questions, guys, do put them in the chat, right? And we will get to them. We're going to spend a little bit of time at the beginning just having a bit of a chat with Kyle. I think both Shea and I got a range of questions that we want to probe Kyle on. So, and that'll hopefully generate, a decent amount of conversation and maybe some additional questions that you can jump in the chat or dump into the chat, because we will get to them. We noticed that, I think, when we had Dave on, Shea, that we kind of, because we chatted for so long, that maybe a few guys in the chat felt that we were ignoring.
Yeah, we were neglecting them.
Not the case. Right? We will absolutely get.
It's hard to get to them like that when you're just chatting, though. I mean, I get it.
Yeah. So we, you guys know that most people know probably that I visited the States back in May of this year and made my way to Indiana and spent, a stretch with Shea. And on the very second day that I arrived there, we drove over and visited Kyle and spent an afternoon and an evening with Kyle, which was just so great. And we thanked you at the time, Kyle, but man, I want to thank you again, man, for hosting us. It was
amazing host.
Yeah, it was
very memorable, dude. So memorable, so amazing. You hosted us like a fucking king, dude. Thank you.
It was so cool, and most
of it was memorable. Most of it.
Well, till the end. Till the end, but
it was memorable at the time. The next day, we're still putting that one together.
Oh, dude, Shea, because as I was just saying to you before we came on, Kyle, that obviously I speak with Shea a lot, right? Because we got a lot of business activity together, and he tells me stuff about things that happened that night, and I'm like, what? I don't really? I don't remember that.
You said some stuff the other night that I even forgot too. I was like, holy shit. We could write a damn book about that night. Holy crap.
It was. I think I got a year's worth of my social calendar was squeezed into.
I'm good. I'm still good.
I don't need to go out ever again after that. I do want to say, before we get into some amp chat, I just want to say, tell one very quick story from that evening, and this is the least.
Can we cheers first? Can we do a little cheers?
Oh, yeah, we need to do a cheers.
Yeah. I haven't got a beer. I haven't got a beer out for this one, guys.
Oh, here, I'll keep the label away because Kyle will roast me if he sees what it is.
I can already tell it's Mick Ultra. It's fine.
It's Mick Ultra.
I'm drinking just Cincinnati beer over here. High octane. I need to watch these. I have some low octane ones too, so I can interleave. And
dude, it's not that zombie dust stuff, is it? That you?
It's not zombie dust, but man, it's close in octane. It's 7% or something.
That'll do it.
But yeah, zombie dust. That I think it's even less than this, but man, that stuff. It's just so easy to drink.
100%. So I remember what I do remember. One of the things about that night, I'll just tell this quick story because I think it says something about just how well we just all got on, right? Like that, as I said, Kyle, we just kind of turned up on your doorstep and said, "Hey, man, we're here." Just kind of
little tiny dog answered the door.
Yeah, that's right. So we were just sitting out in this garden bar, and we had a few beers, right? But it was recent. I don't think it was that late in the night or anything like that by the stage. But we'd met a few locals, and we were chatting to this lady, and she said, there's three of us obviously there, and chatting to her, and she said, how long have you guys known each other? and we literally looked at our watches and went, oh, 6 hours.
Yeah, just tonight.
She was like, no way. You guys are all getting on like you've known each other for 20 years. So it was
I remember that too. That was a nice compliment.
It was nice. It was really cool, right? It was kind of like, yeah.
I feel like
you're filling in my memory on that one. I don't remember that one.
Oh yeah, that one was later in the night. It was later.
Oh, was it? Okay. I was, yeah. Maybe
you had some time dilation there. You didn't.
Yeah, this is it.
Dude,
I remember a lot from the night. I just don't remember the order that it happened in.
You typically don't remember what you don't remember. I think that's the main problem.
Well, this is true, right? This is very true.
I mean, dude, the shop tour that you gave us, man. Oh, we'll never forget that. Just wow. I mean, we should talk about that for a second.
Yeah, let's do that, man. It's a good way to kind of get into a bit of amp chat. So the thing that struck me, Shea, and you'll have your own view on this too, man. But Kyle, your workshop is full of like sophisticated machinery, right? Like all kinds of stuff, everything from metal press and bending machines all the way through to pick and place, PCB stuff, all kinds of stuff that just like was mind blowing. And it became obvious to me, man, as we kind of went around, is that how every single one of those things works down to like the most detailed level in terms of repairing it, operating it, figuring it out like this. And it's not just a couple of machines here, guys. This is like, the KSR factory can do everything.
Everything was in that shop. I mean, it's hilarious because I saw that review that somebody left to you the other day about the Willy Wonka thing. They called you Willy Wonka. And your KSR is basically fucking the chocolate factory, and it's so true. I mean,
so true, dude.
When we were going through, it was just like, wait, there's more to this. Like, there's more places to go, like where you're doing stuff. And then, yeah, it was absolutely insane. Like, I mean, really, just kind of, you can't even really put it into words. It's a
fun space. I'd never actually heard that analogy before, and I do kind of like it.
Oh, I cracked up. That was so funny.
It's pretty funny. Yeah.
If you're dressing up for Halloween, that's your one right there.
Oh yeah.
Gene Wilder though.
Yeah.
This is so guys, if anyone's not in the KSR, so the KSR user group, right, on Facebook, there's that post. Ted, I've actually got it up here, right? Ted Wood was the guy that posted it. So Ted, if you're in the chat, man, shout out for what you wrote, because that like
spot on.
Oh man, in terms of a compliment that you'd want on your business and what you're doing, there's no greater compliment than what this guy wrote.
Yeah.
It's amazing.
Yeah, that was a good one. That I appreciated that he appreciated, our time. And that's the biggest thing, like we love having people and stuff too, but if they don't appreciate the fact that there is some disruption, some disruption is fine, but we don't necessarily want people like looking over everyone's shoulder all day either, because that's just slowing everyone down and whatever too. So it's kind of a give and take, a balance with all that stuff. We love having people, and it seems like the last few weeks, like we've had a visitor probably more than 50% of the week, like every day.
Oh wow.
Every other day, right. Whatever. So that's been pretty cool. And we've got actually like more people coming in next week, more people coming in the week after that. So it's cool to bring in folks, and they can see more of what we're doing. And it's actually, a couple of these next people I'm mentioning are like new OEM customers, that are coming to check out the shop, and hopefully they have as much shock and awe as you guys did, because that's a good thing too, to have just we have a good space, and we want it to be as organized as we can keep it and as clean as we can keep it, but then also functional. It's producing, it's useful space, not just taking up a bunch of space with miscellaneous crap, but all things that are actually useful. Now that there are some exceptions, you saw the storage area, but that's slowly but surely getting more organized and cleaned out, and we're going to build out more production space there. Ultimately, I'd like to have a big audio studio, like all kinds of cool stuff.
Yeah, I'm back.
Oh, cool.
You know,
Yeah.
Sorry.
but and that's just all part of expansion and just growing up too with the business and just keep pushing ahead. And I was fortunate enough to find this space, and
Dude, that's an amazing space. Wow,
it's incredible, and you would never get
incredible.
this. You never get this space anywhere else. Like,
no,
you know, California, this would be $5 million or $10 million. I don't even know what the ratio would be. You know, it would be unaffordable for me.
Yeah,
and,
It's insane. So is it 18,000 square foot, Kyle?
yeah,
Like, is that
18,000 square foot. Yeah,
it's enormous. So with the, you know, one of the things that struck me about.
Hey, hold on. Can I just butt in for 1 second? Before we move on too far, I do want to say that guy who wrote that review made sure not to call your employees Oompa Loompas.
Yeah, it's true. I'm gonna read that.
Called that out too, didn't he?
That paragraph is worth actually reading out. He goes, Kyle is the Willy Wonka of guitar amp designers, and KSR is his chocolate factory. It's so good.
Yeah, perfect.
But I also met some really good folks who work there, but I won't take the analogy too far and refer to them as Oompa Loompas.
I'm sure they appreciate it too.
Nice.
Have you shared that?
They do live there, by the way. They do live there. But I'm joking.
Yeah. My employees do not live at the shop. As much as I'd like them not to go home and just keep working 24 hours a day. Well, actually, I have a joke about that. The joke was that ultimately everybody will end up living here. We'll have like a big hostel area in the basement, you know, bunk beds and stuff. Everyone would just be like beds on pallet racks, you know, and
just like Charlie's grandparents. I mean, you go back to the room and then all your employees are just laying in the bed together.
Exactly. But the joke is that, you know, everyone will stay here. They'll save money on rent. It'd be great. You know, no commute. But, you know, the trick is I'm only paying you 8 hours a day. You just work the other 16 for free.
Well, hey, you're paying for your room and board too.
Yeah, this is it, man.
I mean, I'll allow a nap here and there, but you know, that's how we're gonna get USA manufacturing back on the in the black, right?
Oh yeah,
yeah. This is it.
Everyone has to work for free.
Yeah. You provide a bed, man, and that's it, and they'll work around the clock. So, man, what I was going to say, one of the things that struck me about the facility is that you've expanded to be able to basically do everything from end to end, right? From cutting chassis, bending, welding, you know, faceplates, you know, laser engravers, all the way through to pick and place machines, assembly, the whole 9 yards. Now, that obviously didn't just turn up like that day one. So where did you, like when you started production amps, I do want to talk about kind of how you got into this in the first place, but when you actually started kind of like, okay, now we've got, you know, KSR
for this.
Yeah, cool, man. You're going to need it. When we get into, when you got into kind of like, okay, now I'm going to have a production amp for sale, probably maybe it was the Colossus, was that the first?
Yeah, that was the first one.
Yeah. So what part of that, you know, that kind of production line, where did you start and where did you expand out to? Because you, as I say, you kind of started with everything. So you must have started with something and then had other bits outsourced.
Yeah, that's a good question. So the long and the short of it is I actually built all the woodwork. I did all the woodworking from the beginning. I've never outsourced any woodworking.
Shit.
And that's
hard.
That's because, well, I guess the backstory, if anyone cares, is just
we care.
Yeah, it's fine. You can tell your story.
I
care,
man. I seriously care. I do. I want to hear it.
I was fortunate, and I was able to buy a house relatively young, and you know, had a decent job and consulting company out of college and all that kind of stuff. And well, actually out of high school, but I bought a house, and in 2005, I think it was my first house when I was 25. And
Is this in Lafayette?
Yeah, in Lafayette. And it was cool because it was a decent house and had a nice basement, had a lot of space, and then I had a detached garage that I'm like, you know, it was kind of off the beaten path. It wasn't really a good garage for your car. It was a good garage for a shop. Yeah. So I'm like, this is going to be my wood shop. And I got to build out my first workshop. And that just tickled me to death because I just loved growing up. I spent all of my time when I got home from school, I went straight to the workshop, in my dad's basement, in my mom and dad's basement, and either went straight to the workshop or went straight to my room where I had another project that was something I made in the workshop that I was still working on. You know what I mean? Like I was just always making things since I was in young elementary school. I would just be enamored with this making stuff, and that's where I'm at home. And when I was able to get my own house and actually able to build my own workshop and do it under my own terms and everything, it was just like, kind of freeing, and it felt really good. Now, back, so that was 2005, I bought that place, and then I started to build out my workshop. I think it wasn't until 2006 because I let my buddy use the garage to work on his Jeep. Well, that lasted a year and a half instead of 3 months. Turns out the backstory with him though is he bought me a Mesa Boogie dual recto oversized cab from Guitar Center, brand new, and it was like 2006. And that is still to this day the cabinet I use to test every amp that I test.
Sick.
Oh wow!
So
yeah, really.
It's kind of funny, and it's just, and people ask me, why do you use a Mesa cab? Well, it's just because I know that cab, I know that sound.
Yep.
And that's the cab that's always next to
beginning.
Yeah, since the beginning, since I started, testing amps, since I started having more, big boy amps or whatever too, because I didn't have really great stuff when I was playing guitar. I didn't invest a lot of money in it, and I was investing money in computers and electronics and equipment and that kind of thing. And guitar was just a fun hobby. And then I started playing more seriously in bands. Wasn't serious, but it was more in bands and like needed, had an excuse to get some better gear, I guess, let's put it that way. And had some extra money and that kind of stuff. I bought a Recto on eBay. It's like one random evening. I'm like, just impulse bought a Recto and never played one. Just got it. Like people said they're good. Okay, cool. And
was it a dual or which one was it?
It was a dual Recto 3-channel solo.
Okay.
One. And I'm like, I was kind of underwhelmed when I got it, to be honest. And but I tweaked it and I got it to sound halfway decent and had some pedals and all kinds of different things going on with my live rig, which is we're just playing cover tunes. We're just, for fun and bars. Just get out of the house, do something different than sit in front of a computer. And an excuse to hang out with buddies once a week and all that kind of thing too.
Oh yeah.
Well, then that amp failed on me, and I'm like, well, shit. So I took it apart at some point,
down the rabbit hole you go.
Yeah, and I'm like, well, I could design this better.
Yeah.
Like this is made very strangely, I thought, and
that one amp failure ended up going a long way.
Yeah.
Really, it did, because that was the impetus that, if you look back in time, that was the impetus that started this whole thing.
Yeah.
And it was all because of one.
I'm shocked.
Yeah, Lyle,
we know that feeling.
You follow Lyle's channel, you know that there's a special love for messes. Yeah.
I've never met Lyle, but I appreciate his knowledge and he seems to be, know what he's doing with that with amps and stuff. But I'd like to meet you someday, Lyle. And we can share, we can revel in the fact that they're interesting amps to work on. But and I'm like, well, I didn't know anything about tubes. I never played with vacuum tubes. I never had a reason to. I was a digital electronics guy. I was writing software for a company and designing hardware, and it's mostly digital stuff. And mechanical design and all that kind of stuff. I was designing braille embossing machines, in the disabilities market, and writing software for document translation and for blind to use to read books and that kind of stuff. So all kinds of different things.
Yeah, I remember you telling us that.
So I came from all that, and then played guitar on the side, and I had my new house, and my buddy finally got his stuff out of the shop, and I'm like, I remodeled the shop, made my ultimate wood shop, and I'm like, I'm gonna build furniture. I'm gonna, I love the idea of building furniture, and I had all kinds of trees in my property, walnut trees and stuff, and I had wood cut, and I had wood drying. I had like all this. I was like, this is gonna be my my hobby at night and weekends, is just to create with a different medium, than sitting in front of a desk. And ultimately, what happened was that Mesa failure occurred. I dug into the tube amp world of how these things work and how tubes work and all this stuff, and I follow through the amp and fix the amp. It was no big deal. It was a freaking shorted FET, in the mute circuit, killed the whole amp.
Wow.
One little FET, and turns out the damn FET wasn't even necessary. I mean, you take it out, there's no pops, nothing. It works fine. Like, it was a useless FET that took this amp down, that then in turn caused me to start a business.
Dude, it's just fate, man. I feel like your story is kind of just fate. Like, how it's just crazy that you were already working on, you already had like a wood shop kind of thing going on before this even ever happened.
Yeah,
it's like,
you could say that, but to me it's not fate, because I never got to build any furniture.
never too late.
I built a couple of Adirondack chairs that were patterned after these awesome chairs up in Canada, this place that we go every year, my family and stuff. I gave my brother 2 of them for his wedding present. However, I've only given him 1 because I still haven't finished the second one. Like, he got married, and I'm embarrassed because I don't remember the exact year. It was something like 2007-ish. So yeah, it's been a minute. And that, like, the wood shop, my joke with that is just basically that I built it all out, got it perfect. I was ready to start actually doing something that was fun, other than building workbenches and storage and all the things that you do, setting it all up. That was fun too, but I was getting eager to do other stuff. Well, then this whole amp stuff started. I discovered Weber. Weber was an hour away in
really
Coldwell.
close to Lafayette, right?
Yeah, it's an hour away. I never actually made it out there, but it was so close that it was just intrigued me. And I'm like, there's all this stuff going on where you could buy kits and you could do all this and that. And then I met some other guys that were building stuff locally, and it was kind of like, all right, well, yeah, it's not hard. Like, I might as well do this for fun, whatever. And I think at the time also, the other thing to mention too is 2008. I was doing consulting and keeping busy on the side doing consulting, and then 2008 hit, and then companies weren't putting any money into outside research and development, weren't putting any money into that stuff. So it's like, all right, so I had some time and I had some money left over, so I bought parts and built an amp. And I used like some Weber chassis. I used some boards off, a forum. I used, whatever, put some shit together and made something that sounded cool, but it didn't sound great. And I made it sound great to me.
Yeah.
And
kept working on it.
And you saw that first amp, I think, when you guys were here.
Yeah, we saw that one. Yeah, I remember that.
And that I was playing that amp with all my little cover gigs and stuff that we were just doing around Lafayette. I was playing that amp, and I never even made a head shell for the damn thing. Like, I was carrying this chassis around with no head shell, and it still does not have a head shell to this day.
There wasn't in one.
Still not a head shell to this day. So it's I definitely, my time is focused on just things that give value, and making a head shell for that thing I didn't have the priority. Like, it was not a priority.
It's a wild story too, because talking about the the woodworking stuff before the amp broke down, but you were also already in business, so you had a whole lot of things covered right in the beginning.
Well, well, yes and no. So I was in business with my consulting company, but the amp stuff didn't actually officially start to 2009. It was so 2008 is when I built the first amp. The Mesa died. I got into it. I'm like, I know, or it was maybe 2007 when the Mesa died. I fixed it. I had that lingering in my head, but I didn't have any time. And then when the consulting stuff, I finished projects and there wasn't any more. I'm like, well, I got some time. I'm gonna build that amp that I keep thinking about, and I keep reading about how easy it is to build tube amps or whatever. That kind of, like, being able just to dive in and just throw some stuff together, and you got a platform that you can take and then do whatever you want with it. Like, that's a good starting point. Learning about vacuum tubes, playing around with that stuff, learning about dealing with 500 volts DC, which I'm used to 5 volts DC, not 5. Right?
Yeah, man.
I getting used to not just like poking your fingers around and stuff and feeling for hot parts. Like
tube amp will humble you really quick.
Oh yeah.
First time you get zapped, you're gonna get humbled very quickly, and you're gonna take safety precautions after that.
It does
remind you. Carl, did you do kind of both? Like in terms of starting the company, the AMP company, were you still doing your consulting business as well? Like, did you just go hard into it full time, or did you run kind of part time for a while you still kept the other income going and so on?
I did all those things. So I had the 2008 stuff with the consulting, dried up, but then it actually bounced back a bit. I got some more contracts, got some more stuff going on. In parallel, I'm starting this amp company because I realized I'm playing this amp I built everywhere, and everyone's like, "It sounds freaking amazing! Like, what is that thing?" I'm like, "Oh, I built it. Like, build me one, haha." And then it's like you hear that a bunch, and then eventually a couple buddies of mine, Chris June, I remember the day I was at work. I still remember it like yesterday. He called me just in the middle of the day, and I went out and started talking to him, and he said, "I've been joking about you building me an amp, but I've actually got some money saved, and I'm ready to hand you some cash to make it happen." And I said, "Really? Okay." And I started designing his amp, which was based on a similar circuit to what I had done, but it was in a rack format.
Oh wow!
And so the first one I did for somebody was actually a 3U rack amp. It looks like the Artemis. The Artemis was actually born out of the first 3 amps I did.
Oh, killer!
Because the first 3 ones are rack mount for other people. The first one was the white one I've got. But anyway, then his bandmate wanted one as soon as he ordered one, and then another buddy, Nate Miller, he wanted one, but it was totally different. So between I tweaked out some stuff with those guys on the lead and crunch tones, but then with Nate's amp, I perfected like a awesome clean channel and awesome crunch channel. It was totally different kind of style. And then I did another amp for a guy, Mike Winchell. He wanted more of like a rock and roll kind of thing, but still high gain. And then another guy wanted another amp. It was a rack amp, Buddy, down in Indy. He wanted essentially something that was more feature rich than what the first 2 guys got, but in rack form. Well, in Buddy's amp is like basically an Artemis. And with all that, I'm like, well, shit, I can just make my perfect amp now. And then I designed the Colossus. And by this time, after I did all these custom amps and did all that stuff, none of that was woodworking. It was all sheet metal and obviously electronics and stuff. But the sheet metal I had all done locally at a company that I had used at my day job to do sheet metal and to do stuff. So I already had these connections, and I already had anodizing, and I already had machine shop. I had like 3 different machine shops I worked with. I had all those places set up and circuit board companies that I ordered from. So I mean, because I built and manufactured and designed products myself at work.
So you already had the knowledge of designing basically circuit boards and stuff at that time. Yeah, dude. I mean,
it's a great.
I mean, it's crazy, man. It's just crazy.
I mean, I'm like essentially, I call, I don't know. It's just all just titles or whatever. But I've always just called myself an electrical engineer, but I'm really like an electrical, computer, and mechanical and software engineer. So, and a little bit of woodworker too. But
yes.
we
noticed.
Yeah.
So I've always been like that. I've always just like very multidisciplinary. I'm not real happy doing any one very specific narrow thing.
You need that variety, don't you? Like, kind of like to do the same thing over and over again, like it can get boring, right? So that little bit of variety and kind of change. And man, I remember one of the things that you showed us the day that we were with you is you had all the CAD stuff open for an amp that you've now launched, right? And you showed Shea and I some of that stuff.
Oh, the Orion.
It was the Orion, which we had a playthrough as well, right? Which is killer in that front room at the factory.
Sounded great. That amp sounded
great. The stuff, it sounded freaking awesome. And but the stuff that you showed on the CAD stuff, man, that was like super inspiring for me. I was just like, that's one day I'll get if I can make it to that level. I'll be a happy man.
I remember being at the bar that night, and I lost you guys for a while. You guys started talking about all that stuff, and I'm like, well, I'm just gonna go make some new friends over here for a little bit.
Yeah, we might have talked about that for a bit.
Yeah.
So Cole, what is your, like, you know, everyone who's an amp designer or a tweaker or a modder has a tone that's kind of sitting in their brain, right? That they, you know, you tweak and change, and then you go, that's it. This is in the ballpark. This is now close, or this is exactly what I want, you know. And everyone's view on that is obviously different, which is why we have amps that sound different. What's your, you know, when you think about that tone that you were searching for, is it based on a particular player or a, you know, genre of music, or like where's your home base?
Man, that's tough. That's a tough question.
That's a fucking real tough question, actually.
Sorry. I'm here to ask the hard questions.
Fuck, I don't know. I couldn't answer that shit.
I think I just realized my face is really white again. I'm gonna make.
You're fine.
There's a lot of white in this video or in
You're
this
all good,
screen.
man.
But yeah, we're struggling with my bright computer monitors, I guess. Like the boogie that I had, you know, obviously they're known, you know, I'm not speaking anything that I think a lot of people don't agree with, but you know, their low end is very boomy. You know, there's top end things that aren't necessarily pleasing. There's, you know, all that kind of stuff. I'm fairly sensitive to top end, to high frequencies and shrillness. So, you know, and I'll see like random comments like, oh, you know, KSR amps they're kind of dark or whatever. I mean, everything I knew, and I don't think it's dark at all. There's a lot left you can crank into that treble and get it. It's just, it's just when you do that, it doesn't get like nasty. And because I don't like that nasty, I don't like to, you know, you feel that little tingle or something like that when you hear something that's just not good. And that's what I get when I hear a lot of shrillness or
fizzy.
Fizzy is kind of part of it. I think fizzy is more of like just that artifact that lives on top of more of a mid-range. But like the shrillness is like, you know, if I were to bend a note high up on the neck and it's just screaming at you.
Yeah,
and
I get
that ice pick kind of.
Ice pick, yeah, that's a good term for it. And then you have that, which I don't like. So I'm naturally dialing out treble and presence and that kind of stuff a bit. Well, then with the recto, you got all that low end and it's just taking over. So you got to dial that out, and then you're left with just mids, and you can make it sound kind of decent. But with some mods, it can sound really, really good to me anyway. And so that's, you know, that's why I do recto mods. But
well, I mean, that was your starting point, right?
Yeah, so. Yeah. I mean, I didn't actually start with recto. It was like that. I did that a couple times back early, like 2011, 2012. I did like 3, and those 3 amps are still floating around the internet and still getting videos made, and it's just pretty funny.
Oh wow, cool.
Yeah. And then at some point, like 10 years later, I'm like, well, maybe we should just offer mods. Well, then I can't get through them now. It's like I do them all myself, and now I got a pile of dozen amps out there that I still have to get done. And you know, there are a dozen different amps. That's the problem. So
yes, man. So you're still taking mods in, like people will ship you amps and you'll still work on them.
Yeah, I held off for a while, and then you know, people were just banging at my door so much. I'm like, you know, as long as you understand it's going to take a while, and you're fine with that, I'll take it and I'll put it in
Most
the queue.
people are cool with that.
Yeah, and it's fine. And I've had some for longer than I'd like to admit. I'm just trying to get to. Some of them are just really complex. Like I got this.
Well, you guys are sorry. I don't mean to cut you off. Go ahead.
It's just it's an amp. It's a buddy of mine. Call him a buddy. You know, more of acquaintance, but that he designed, and it's just like a rat's nest of stuff. And I'm like, what the hell is all this? I got to text him and be like, all right, so where do I start with this thing? So that kind of stuff is a lot more difficult than
takes time. It takes a lot of time out of your day to venture into that stuff.
If you take, it's one thing taking a production amp in because your starting point, right? Taking in an amp that someone else is heavily modded and you don't know anything about what they've done, what's been done to it in the past, man. I kind of avoid that. I don't want to go there. It's too hard.
It's always a learning experience, but it takes more time and that kind of stuff too. This particular amp is a production amp. It's just very hand wired and very. There's a lot of crap like nested on top of other crap. You got to like dig down into it. It's like built in 3 dimensions essentially. It's like, I mean, just the clean volume control has like 12 parts all just coming out of it and wrapped around itself, and I'm like, I can't even trace this out. Like it's just everything's just wrapped around this pot, like, and then there's a little circuit board too, and I'm like, what the hell is even happening here?
Man.
Yeah, so that kind of stuff that just takes longer, and sometimes you just got to hit the low hanging fruit, and the amps that I've done before, I can get those done relatively quick, but there's still you got to unpack the thing, you got to take it out of the head shut,
you guys had
do all that, it's a few hours.
You guys had repairs there as well. I remember seeing amps for repair, like not KSR amps, but just like regular tube amps in for repair.
We started doing that also, just because, for one, like nobody knows we're here, so it's a good way to get the word out to local guitar players that there's a company like us around, not only for repairing their things, but we get them in here and then, well, they see all the stuff we build right here, and they're like, "You guys, I had no idea."
You got to bring them into the chocolate factory, man.
Yeah, you gotta just give them a little taste.
Once they take that tour, they ain't ever.
Once they taste that chocolate, man, this is it. First one's free, right?
Yeah, the taste is free. So it made business sense, and we had some 4 different guys that can repair amps, so it's like, all right, we'll just bring in some more stuff, and of course it helps with just extra income too. And
I got a question, if you don't mind.
Go, man.
So transition. Okay, when did you do your first pedal?
2019. That was the series.
2019. Yeah. So what was the so you were in business for many years before that happened. What's your thoughts on all that stuff and kind of now where it's at now?
Yeah, so it's interesting that when I started out, my opinion was, there's no way I could make, or we, or however you want to call it, colloquially. I can't talk at all. Too much whiskey already, apparently.
I'll drink more.
We got you, man. It's all good.
That's a hard word to say sober anyway, but the thing is with pedals, I'm like, there's no way we could make any money building a bunch of little boxes with all the work that goes into it, and then you sell it for a couple $100, and then what do you have at the end of that? And you got to keep doing that and doing that and doing that, and it didn't make any sense to me. So I never even considered pedals, really. I was just working on the amps, getting those as cool as I could make them, and building them as fast as we could, and it was keeping us busy enough. And then I started to see, on one hand, I was growing up too, so there's that, and I had more equipment, more machines. I had a CNC machine. I had then a couple CNC machines, and I had a laser, and then I had the pick and place, and by the time
it just made sense after a while.
Yeah, by the time I had all that stuff, I was like, well, shit, I could make pedals, and I could probably make them cheaper than than I ever could. I could make them cheap. Certainly, I could make them cheaper than paying somebody else to make them, and then just take a little cut, which is what 99% of people do. And don't believe that stat, but I don't actually know the percentage.
I would agree with it. I mean, you're
certainly the volume stuff, right? Like the volume stuff is
the volume stuff
by and large is outsourced somewhere.
Yeah. And typically it's Asia or a couple companies here in the US, like All Pedal or BAD or whatever, do pedals at a higher volume. And I'm like, well, I got some equipment, and then I had the idea to try to replicate as best I could the tube amp sounds of what I had going on in the heads, and I started playing around with circuits and op amps and FETs and just different techniques for making distortion in a solid state realm. And it was rather interesting because right off the bat, I was testing it right into just the effects return of an Orthos, because that's just what I had right next to me on my Mesa 412. And I was immediately blown away with how good I could make it sound by just tweaking some stuff, or iterating. Essentially, it sounded really decent to start with.
This is a question, man.
Awesome.
So
awesome.
just like the coming to pedal design from tube amps, right? And so this is a question I'm personally interested in, right? So through the work that we've all done. No, man. So through the work that the three of us have all done, we get to the point where we kind of understand how a trio is going to behave, how to shape that gain stage, both in terms of what you're feeding into it, the design of the gain stage, and then obviously interstage design, all that kind of stuff. So with all that knowledge, when you went to then go, okay, now I'm going to look in the solid state realm and could you apply, was that able to be applied directly into that? Or is it like starting kind of like, I've got to kind of start again, and how all this comes together?
It's all just electrical engineering. So it's all just filters, and the math is all the same.
Yep.
It's just different formulas. You're dealing with op amps or whatever, or FETs, which just behave totally differently than tubes when you have like this huge plate impedance built into the triode, and you have this negative voltage and this biasing and all these fun things that you got to deal with a triode. But with an op amp, it's so much freaking easier, and it all operates at a voltage that you can again start touching the circuit and feeling for hot parts, and feeling for instability too, because touching a circuit, like this is a common thing when you're doing digital electronics or analog solid state electronics that's all low voltage. It's common to use your fingers. I don't know if you guys ever have experienced this because you're more tube guys, but it's not uncommon for me to do this shit all the time with a digital circuit, especially like if you've got a high impedance floating line somewhere, or you got a circuit that's, or some sort of digital circuit that's acting flaky or whatever. It could be anything. Could be discrete logic, could be a mixture, whatever. And you have it acting flaky. Well, the first thing I start doing is touching around the board and to see if I can get it to change behavior while just touching it. And it's indicative of a high impedance line is floating, and my skin resistance is enough to trigger it, right? Well, you can't really do that in a tube amp, but in a pedal, it all works the same as well. You can find instability and oscillations and all kinds of stuff just by feeling around and touching stuff. And
cool.
I at Purdue, and I guess starting in elementary school, really, with Forrest Mims Engineers Mini Notebooks, I've been building op amp circuits, and it wasn't until probably in high school, middle school or high school, where I started to do the math really instead of just playing with it. And then in Purdue, it's like, okay, you got way into it a lot deeper, and I understood how things worked a lot better. But then it still was just that same 3-terminal op amp that I'd been playing with for years already, and then kind of came back into it. I'm like, oh, this is familiar territory. I'm doing something completely different with it than I was before, which was just screwing around with other circuits or whatever. Like, I was making robots and stuff, is what I was into when I was in high school and middle school and elementary school, was making these robots and robotic projects and things. And when I say elementary school, people are like kind of wonder what the hell I'm talking about. I started playing with 555 timers and op amps and all that kind of stuff like in 4th grade. So I kind of started a little young.
You got me.
I remember those.
I was fucking skateboarding. you got some good years on me.
Well, the funny thing is, a guy I met at Radio Shack when I was building some circuits and I was trying to get parts. I had the engineer's mini notebooks from Forrest Mims. I don't know if anyone knows Radio Shack stuff back in the day. These little engineer's mini notebooks were fantastic. There's like a 555 timer book. There was an op amp book. There was a transistor. What was it called? I think it was just called like transistors and MOSFETs or something like that. I don't know. I've got them all in scans now. They're fantastic. And I'm,
awesome.
The dude is a great author and just a great teacher. And that's how I learned early circuits originally. And then when I was trying to build some stuff and I went to Radio Shack to get some parts, this guy just kind of came up and he's like, "What are you building?" And we started talking, and turns out that guy took me under his wing and mentored me. And he was like in college. So he was like in tech school in Buffalo. And his name's Jason. And he showed me digital electronics. Well, first he showed me how all this analog stuff worked at a kind of a level that I understood better, like application. Keep in mind I'm like 10 years old, so 10 years old, whatever, when I met him. So, and I'm building breadboard circuits and doing all this stuff and trying to figure out how this stuff works, and we're going through things, and I just remember night after night him going through on notebooks and drawing amplifier circuits and just explaining how the stuff worked. And I'm just
That's
like
insane, man.
a sponge.
Crazy.
I'm just a sponge. I'm just like, I'm just taking it all in. And then
you were born for this, man. I mean, it sounds like it, man. I mean, everything just fell in line the whole entire life, your whole entire lifetime.
Well,
just doop, 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 all the way down.
Fast forward a couple months, and I'm building a microcontroller from scratch, and maybe not a couple months, maybe it was 12 months, building a microcontroller with a Zilog 8671 basic microprocessor that he had built a project with prior, so he knew what was going on. He showed me a schematic. I built the thing. He tore it apart. We rebuilt it. He showed me all the things I did wrong, and we got it going. It worked. He gave me a computer, like my first computer, which was just a Radio Shack Color Computer 3. Modified a modem plug-in module, with just cutting some traces on the UART to connect right to the Z8 chip. And the next thing you know, we had a basic interpreter that we're talking to live on this computer plugged into a TV. And I was like, what the fuck? This is awesome. I can write programs on this little thing, and then I can move motors, and I can take in inputs, and I can do all the things I want to do, because ultimately I was just trying to build robots. And I just didn't know how to actually make the brain, right? And I had the mechanics and the woodworking and all that stuff I was doing with my dad, and I could sit down in the workshop and make all this stuff up, but I couldn't make the brain.
Yeah.
And I remember in elementary school, I had drawn out a big schematic, and it was based around a dishwasher timer, because I had taken apart a dishwasher that my parents upgraded, and it's a synchronous motor that just runs a bunch of cams with a bunch of switches. And I'm like, I could make a robot out of this that just follows a path. And it's like, okay, go forward for so long, and then turn right, and then turn right, and then turn left. And I could draw a picture on the floor or whatever. And that was my idea, is just to do completely mechanically or electromechanically. And then once I could do it with a microcontroller, I'm like, well, I could do fucking anything now. And it just went from there. Well, eventually him and I lost touch. Then we got back. I remember just thinking about him randomly and found him on LinkedIn or something like that. We started talking, then we lost touch again, and then found him on Facebook once Facebook was a thing, and we kept in touch. And now he works for me. Now he's a main amp builder. So awesome. It's just funny how that has all come full circle.
Is that the guy that we met when we were there?
Tall
guy,
bald,
a little older. Yeah, that was him. He was a super cool guy.
Yeah. So he wires up all our amps and does all the QC and all that stuff.
Awesome.
And it's really really kind of funny how that's.
I saw his work too. He does fucking beautiful work.
Killer.
Yeah, exactly. That's the only that's the only thing I want leaving this place, is something that looks like I did it. Looks like
absolutely.
And I don't mean that in like a whatever way. I just mean it in a way that I'm happy with the work.
Right.
I have a high standard, at least in my opinion. I have a high standard, and I just want anyone who's helping to have that same standard.
Yeah.
And that's the hardest part when you start a business, especially when you do everything.
I bet once you get to a certain level, if you get good at it, obviously you know what you're doing in a lot of areas when you get good at something, and then when you bring somebody in and then you have to train them and teach them at the you know, and then be okay with the, you know, that would be really hard. I'm sure that would be extremely hard to do.
I mean, because there's a level of what's good enough, what's
Yeah.
too much, you know, like what's too much time. You know, you can't spend 3 weeks wiring an amp. That should only take 3 days or whatever.
Yep.
I mean, you're not gonna
Well,
see any benefit out of that.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Like, you're not gonna see any benefit of spending 10 times as long on something that shouldn't take that
Absolutely.
long. Right?
Absolutely.
That's
Yeah.
just obsession at that point.
Yep. Yeah.
But then you don't want to rush it and have it just look like
Mhm.
crap. You don't want
Yeah.
you don't want every build to look like your first build. And
when those amps go out, you don't want them coming back, man.
exactly. And that's what I've always said. Is once this leaves, I never want to see it again.
Yeah, 100%.
That's the goal. I mean, the goal is, you know, make something that people are happy with and it brings them joy, and then you never see it again. It's like it doesn't break, and it's like, you know, that's it. Like that's the goal, the end goal.
I mean, it's okay to see it on TV, on a stage.
Yeah. Well, those are bonuses.
Photo.
Right? Yeah, those are bonuses.
That's it, man.
That's the only way I want to see it. I don't want to have to take it apart, you know. And you know, ship it back and do all that kind of stuff because of a problem. You know, if it's it's one thing. If it's
it does happen. I mean, stuff. It, you know, can't get away from it. Tubes fail, and some guys, you know, some guys in the space just aren't as hip to the, you know, changing out tubes and other stuff, and they get weary about touching stuff. So it's just kind of nature of the beast, I guess.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a you know, it's an interesting business from that standpoint too. It's like, not many consumer products have as many potential failures as the tube.
Oh boy, I know.
That's right. Yeah,
I know.
And but it's like the consumers of those products typically understand.
Most of them do. The good thing about about the guys who buy like kind of like the, you know, the more boutique high gain stuff is they've been doing it for a while, and they've gone through years of, you know, trying out stuff, and they have extra sets of tubes, they have fuses, you know, they know the rules of hooking up, you know, impedance and speaker cabs and all that stuff. So most of the guys are absolutely.
I think you're right, man. I think you're right, because someone who's kind of still learning the craft will be buying something down at Guitar Center that's, you know, the lower end or whatever, probably. And wouldn't be buying amps from either of us three. And when I've found, I mean, I think Shea, you and I were chatting about this earlier in the week, is that a couple of times I've had amps come back where when you look at it, it's obvious that someone's run it without a cab, with no load,
or a mismatch.
Yeah, and just in terms of human behavior, no one wants to admit that. So often the amp will come in as a you know, something happened to it, right? And then we look at it, and then you call the guy and you go, "Man, did you play this without a cab?
Did you flip this on and start playing this without anything hooked up to it?
Yeah, maybe.
You just didn't want to tell me.
My dog turned it on."
Yeah,
I don't want to admit it.
I was only for a second. It's fine. It just depends. It depends on the amp as to how resilient it is to that. But the flyback voltage that happens. But
hey, so man, I just want to ask you about the Colossus was your first production amp. Now you've obviously built out, you know, you got a range of heads now, right? And obviously we talked about the rack mount one just before that, as the Artemis, and you got, you know, Gemini and a bunch of others. How did you build out from the Colossus? Was that based on kind of feedback you were getting, or more your own, you know, kind of you could see a market need or an opportunity for a different kind of?
So in the beginning, especially, I mean, most of the products were kind of born from what people were asking me to build, or suggesting I build, or wanting in some regard, or at least I thought they wanted. And you know, I did the Colossus as kind of my ultimate amp to start with.
Yeah.
And then the Artemis was next, and I think that I don't really remember what the impetus to design the Artemis was, but at this point, it was probably a customer. It was probably, the first customer of that amp was somebody who wanted that amp. Because
Right.
back in the day, that's kind of how product development came about.
What was
And
the
I already
timeline?
had,
What was the timeline between those two products? If you don't mind me asking.
I think it was
A few years,
no,
or quicker than that.
I want to say it was still the same year, because I think
Oh wow.
December 2010, I finished the Colossus prototype, and I took it to California for James Lugo's Amp Fest. It was like the second one he did, and it was just this total crazy thing. I'm like, whatever, I'm just gonna fly out to California and show everybody this amp that I did.
That's on YouTube, isn't it? Is
Yeah,
is
I think it
that
still
actual
is.
one? Is
Yeah.
that actual one on YouTube?
Those are, man, that's like ground zero right there, man. That's those OG, those are great videos.
Yeah, I've watched those tons of times. They're awesome.
And that was the best trip I ever made, because and it was the most impulsive sort of thing I've ever done. I think to this day, in terms of just like in raw like anxiety of it all.
Oh, I bet, man. Who was there, man? Like who else was there?
I met everybody that first trip. It was crazy. Like
amazing.
So I had this amp. I was madly tweaking it. I just got it built days before I'm leaving. I'm like tweaking the hell out of it. I still have a day job, like I'm just getting time in whenever I can. And then I'm flying out there, and I'm carrying this amp on the plane because I didn't finish it in time to ship it. So, it's like I'm trying to figure out how I'm by myself. I've got a suitcase, I've got an amplifier in a big box. How am I going to carry this crap off the plane and get a car and, in LA and never been to California before, like, all these things.
Wow.
And I like a friend of mine, I think it was Steph, I worked with her, and we're still friends to this day, but I think she's the one who suggested, hey, I've got a fold up dolly at work. And like, it was broken or some shit. And then I found one and I put it in my suitcase, and that was how I carried that amp after I got off the plane. So like, it was checked, had this like dolly thing that
looks like a suitcase, right?
Yeah, well, it was like
a suitcase.
It was like we didn't even have good shit yet. Like I had a shitty old suitcase. It was like hard to roll or whatever. Then I had this dolly thing that I had to strap the amp to, and I'm like trying to deal with the suitcase and this thing. And of course, I rented the cheapest car I could rent. It's like Fox Rentals, off site. Like I get LAX to some random sketchy shuttle. I'm trying to deal with this crap. I get to the rental place. It's like super sketch town. I'm like, what am I doing? I get in this car that's like the cheapest car, and then I'm like on highway 101 or whatever that is, and I'm like white knuckling it the whole way. I'm like, I can't even accelerate fast enough to merge into traffic. I'm trying to like, what am I doing? And then I drive up to North Hollywood and show up, and there's James, and of course James answers the door. He got a camera right in my face.
Oh shit!
Oh, Kyle's here. He was just like a vlog. I mean, he just vlogged everything, and immediately I'm just like, "Hi, how's it going?" And not used to this sort of thing. I'm used to working in my basement alone.
This is the best, man.
So we did that Amfest, and it was interesting. I met Bogner, I met Friedman, I met Pete Thorne, I met Mark Cameron. Like,
wow, yeah.
And I met a few buddies that actually are still friends to this day. Quinn Webb, he turned out he was from Lawrenceburg, Indiana. He moved to LA. Now he lives back in Lawrenceburg. He's like 45 minutes from my shop. So like, we're still buddies. He's got a couple of our amps. And then Rich Mazza, he was there at that Amfest too. He's just like a super gearhead. And then he ended up helping me at NAMM, because I went back a month later to go to that first NAMM that I went to, which was NAMM 2011. And so like, Rich hooked me up with some cabinets and guitars and stuff, and I brought this Colossus back, and we just had hotel jams. and I just
I remember seeing like the high gain videos in the hotel rooms. Were you a part of that?
Well, I think you're thinking of like the amp show
Yeah,
stuff. This was
Different time.
self-organized.
Oh, okay.
This was during NAMM. Again, it was a cheap ass hotel, but it was as close as I could get to the convention center and as cheap as I could get with a room. And I brought the Colossus. I'd done some tweaks since the Amp Fest. I did some more tweaks based on feedback and stuff. Because this is the first time anyone had ever played it but me was at Amp Fest. That's the other thing that made me super nervous.
Dude,
Nobody else had even played this amp.
That's crazy.
And then Rich brought some cabinets and guitars, and then my buddy Brad came out that year, and then he helped me organize just getting all the things set up for beer and that kind of stuff. And I just posted on Rig Talk, hey, after NAMM after party, Castle Inn, room whatever, come on by. and like Jason Frankhauser came by, and
sick.
He did the first Colossus demo. He played that amp, and he played for hours. Like, he just wouldn't stop.
Dude,
and he had this crazy Bernie Rico guitar that I'd never seen anything like this extended scale tuned in C or whatever. And he's just like,
that dude. I think that dude is so awesome, man. I've worked with him a little bit, and he's just such a rad dude.
He's super cool and such a killer player, and such a just humble, nice, boy from Texas, right? And but he shreds, and he just destroyed the thing, and he loved the amp, and he offered to do a video. And I'm like, sure. So we worked it out after NAMM, sent it to him, and he did that first Colossus video. It's still up on YouTube, and it's like that sold a bunch of amps.
I've never seen that. I'm gonna go back and check that one out for sure.
Still remember that. The riff is so cool. The riff he did for that is so freaking cool.
He's got good riffs, man. He does. He's got some fucking riffs.
And it was so low, like lo-fi production quality as far as like to what he's done now. Like, it was, he had insulation like on the walls exposed and stuff, but when he chugged, like, the camera shook a little bit. I think that helped add to the whole the whole experience. That this is a killer amp.
That's the in the room sound right there.
But that first NAMM trip was fantastic, and that Amp Fest really just helped kind of get me a little bit of a foundation of people I knew in LA, because I knew nobody. So then when I came back a month later, it's like no time has passed, and pick up right where we left off, and they're all ready and willing to help because they thought the amp was cool as hell, and we just got along well. And Diego, my other buddy, still to this day, he helps me at NAMM, and every time I go back to LA, we reunite. And
I got a question.
We got some stories about the Hilton and him. Oh my god.
Uh-oh. Sounds dangerous. We got some stories about the Hilton. Sounds dangerous from the get-go.
Have you been to NAMM yet? Have you been to NAMM yet?
No, I've never been.
No, this is what I want to ask this. So,
everybody that goes to NAMM
what was the
knows
first year
about
that you went to NAMM? 20 what was 2010?
January 2011 was the first.
2011 was your first NAMM. Okay.
Yeah.
Do you think so like the way that like business operates is kind of changed quite a bit. Do you think that going to NAMM still is as important as it was back in the day?
No, I don't.
Yeah.
It has some value, I think,
but
man, it's such a risk these days. Like that's where I'm at with it, because it used to be, frankly, like it was actually a profitable trip, because I could pay for all the things that we needed, the booth and the carpet and all that crap, and then you got $4,000 or whatever, and then you got ship everything out there. There's another couple grand or $1,000, whatever it is. I always shipped an entire huge skid of stuff and filled the booth with gear, and that was my booth. That was my backdrop, was all my gear, but I sold it all. It was no problem to sell it all. So it was this big rush to get everything done, and then I would leave there empty-handed. Either walk off the floor at the end of the show, or we'd ship it from there.
And that's awesome.
It was fantastic, but it was a lot of stress, a lot of work, sleepless nights for a couple months prior, especially
Yeah.
weeks prior when you're trying to finish that last product, that new product. You're trying to finish that prototype to show. It's always so much stress. And then I get out there, I'm alone. I'm going out there alone. I've got some help there, like Diego and Rich and those guys, but there was no real help getting there. Like I've had whatever help I had, which as the years went, I had more and more help. But by and large, I'm doing most of this work, and then man, it's just so rough. Like I was looking forward to, after doing that for several years, I was really looking forward to a break, but I didn't know how to take a break because you can't just stop going because it just doesn't look good for your company.
Well, once you're locked in.
Yeah, once you're locked in.
Once you're locked in, you're working 12-hour days.
Yes.
Yeah.
12. Shit, I can only work 12.
What?
I thought it was 18.
Well, yeah, you got me on that then. But I mean, you look back at what NAMM kind of was back then. It's like
it was different.
The press,
sure.
You get the press, you get to meet connections, dealers, right?
And dealers, like, that's what NAMM is supposed to be about, is dealers and distributors coming in, and you meet them, and they place orders. They write up orders, 100 of these, 300 of these, whatever, blah, blah, blah. I wish it were like that for us. For us, it was more about interacting with the individuals. And I say I wish it was like that, just in the sense that that's just a whole nother level of business that we didn't get to yet. Where we're writing $1 million of the orders or whatever at NAMM. That's like what NAMM is supposed to be. But for us, it's always been more about the guys, like the artists that come by, they play.
Oh yeah, there's that too, right?
Fans
that's
come
amazing.
around. The artist is done playing, and he's maybe our artist or not, or he's just a artist. That's how I met Dino, and he buys our shit. Like it's awesome, and it's cool when you get guys like Dino, who are killer players, they're ubiquitous, and they still like don't expect you to just give him shit. Like he buys stuff off my website. Are you
talking about the dude from Fear Factory?
Yeah. My first ever major concert was Fear Factory opening for Ozzy, Aragon Ballroom.
Oh, right on.
I think that was 1996.
That's cool.
6 or 5.
That's cool how that happens like that.
That's cool.
Shit, it could be 94. I don't know. I'd have to go back and look at the archives of the annals of the Aragon Ballroom and see when Fear Factory and Ozzy
played.
But
that was a good one, honestly.
It was an awesome show.
I've never seen Ozzy. I would love to see that back in the day.
And that was back when he could still sing. So
I mean,
really
it's
good.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, he's declined a bit, but I don't even know if we're going to see him live again at this point. But
I'm not sure.
They're old. Yeah.
Back in the day, like Ozzy was my dude, and Randy Rhoads and Satriani and Fear Factory. All those bands were bands I just loved, and I was into heavier music and stuff than my friends and all that stuff. So I wasn't into the whole grunge scene, Nirvana, Pearl Jam, Soundgarden, all the stuff that everybody else was listening to. I was
never into that either.
Cannibal Corpse, Obituary, Suffocation, Ozzy, Jason Becker, Steve Vai. Like I ran the gamut from shred to death metal, but I didn't really get into grunge stuff. But I do listen to it now. Like I
like it now. Isn't that weird? I like it now. It's like I didn't like it back then, but for some reason, if it comes on now, I'm like, oh fuck yeah, this is good.
I mean, they did some great stuff. Like I didn't realize how deep it was, and like now I've got Nirvana records, and I've got Soundgarden records, and I've got
it's just all the stuff. It's so wild how that happens.
Just skipped over. But I think part of it was I was so into metal and stuff, and it just wasn't metal, and also like I never really subscribed to mainstream stuff either. Like anything that everybody else
neither, man.
I don't want to do that.
Me neither.
But even with like amplifiers and stuff, I don't own any other amplifiers. I don't own any amps. I own barely my own stuff. Like I don't play other amp. The only time I play other people's amps is when I mod them, and I'm like, okay, that sounds like okay, cool. I'll hear it on YouTube or whatever. Actually play
me and Jason might have a few. of amplifiers.
We
might have a few.
I envy the collection. Like, I would like to have a collection of amps, but I think that would be fun to have like a big room full of stuff. But
it's a nice reference point. Like, I go back and play them just because it's kind of like, it's nice to kind of know, like, oh yeah,
I do like that for sure.
Yeah, definitely.
Plus, I still have the sickness. Like, I get, like, if I get on Reverb and I'm searching for something, I'm already doomed because I'm probably gonna buy it. So I still live with that, like most guitar players do.
Well, head over to the KSR Amps Reverb page.
I think I finally got through that, man, because I was the same for a long time.
Help me.
But I don't know, maybe 6 months, 12 months.
I bought a Silverburst the other day.
I saw that.
I bought a brand new Silverburst custom. I should have never looked at them. I should have never started looking at them. And it's just like, it just got to the point where it's like, nope, I'm gonna have to give in to this. It's gonna get me, and I did.
I still want a nice Les Paul, probably like a Lemon Burst or something for me though.
Oh yeah, those are nice.
You had to tick the box. I might get to a few comments or questions in the chat now, guys.
We've been totally ignoring all of them, haven't we?
Yeah.
Can we take a quick intermission? I got to pee real bad. I'm drinking beer.
I might do the same actually. So we'll just take 5 guys and we'll come back. Yeah, good idea.
Okay. I don't need 5, but if you do.
Yeah. Oops. How do I do this?
Yeah.
You can leave me on if you want to.
You can pause the whole live stream, or what? How's that work?
I don't know. You could just leave it on there. We're going to finally get to these questions. There's a lot of them.
We should just take a break one at a time, and then we could just keep it going.
Yeah, we could.
I mean, if Jason's maybe
he's got it. Yeah, he's the one who brings it up on the. He's the one that brings it up on the screen there.
I'm back. I just stopped my.
Perfect. That was a quick pee, Jason.
Okay, now I'm going.
I haven't been. I heard you guys. I just stopped the. Actually, I'll wait. Well, let's do that, right? I'll wait for Shea. I'll wait for Shea to come back. We'll just keep going. So, man, here's a question. Right at the beginning of the chat, which actually I wanted to ask you as well. Similar question. So it's from Ben, and Ben says, if you think about kind of what's happened with YouTube, and this kind of, I think, is an extension of the whole conversation about the usefulness of NAMM.
Mm-hmm.
And I think we all know this, right? And we all see it. So when we come to the kind of YouTube reviewers, so he's saying they've become shills for corporations. So same script, same result, videos all released at the same time, with the same talking points in order, blah, 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 blah. So, and then he's pointing to a few guys that probably don't follow the script. But do you think that that's like, it's probably a 2-part question, Kyle, man. So do you think that the YouTube thing is still hugely relevant in terms of, marketing and sales, and but also has it become a bit predictable now, the way that these product releases happen?
Yeah, I think companies, there's this field of study called marketing, right?
Yeah. You're correct.
And I have not studied it personally.
No, me neither.
Any sort of academic level, but in general, I think it's just human psychology and how to appeal to it. And then when technology changes and advances and changes the landscape of marketing, like changes the norm, right? Because it used to be if we came up with an amp or a pedal or a gadget, pick a number, I don't know, 30 years ago, it would be the first thing you do is put it in Guitar Player magazine,
right,
or something like that, and and start advertising it and whatever, market it to retailers, and the retailers do the job of marketing, and they put it in their catalog, and that's all marketing, right? Well, now that we have this platform or multiple platforms that allow anybody to create content and anybody to put content in front of other people, well, then it just opens up the floodgates of potential marketing. And I think for a while, or for at least a period of time in the tube amp world, like our boutique amp world, marketing through those channels was really effective because it wasn't so saturated with all of the bigger corporations, bigger companies that have the money to hire 7 YouTubers to all do the same video and all release it on the same day,
on the
launch
same day.
and do all that stuff. That has changed the landscape of how we can effectively market, because then these platforms are saturated with this paid content. And I've paid for exactly one YouTube video, and ironically, that
Was it
video
worth it? Was it worth it?
that video produced the least fruit of any.
Yeah.
Wow.
And I think genuine reviews, genuine content, or just a presentation in terms of like, here's an amp, here's a song, and then leave it at that, and don't include a bunch of talking points and stuff.
Yeah.
Let the product speak for itself. That was my marketing strategy for
that's it.
10 years. Just let the product speak for itself. And
that's been mine.
Exactly. And the users of the product, of the believers of the product,
they'll tell everybody.
And they'll tell everybody. And God, I hate the frickin' term brand ambassador, but that's essentially what they are, but they're not paid. They're a brand ambassador that's doing it because they respect you as a person. They respect the product. They like the product.
So it's more, it's kind of more authentic in that way.
It's totally 100 million % more authentic, because that person has a connection with you in terms of, you worked with them to build this thing for them, and they appreciate that effort. They love it. They use it. They want to talk about it.
Yeah.
It's not like, hey, so how much for a video?
Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
$1,000. Okay.
Yeah.
And
there's no problem. I don't think there's any problem with those guys doing that. I mean, especially the guys that have just massive YouTube channels.
It has I guess it has its place, but I'm only saying that I agree that it has less value, I think, when
it's interesting, isn't it? I mean, I think it's awesome that these guys have built channels, and I've invested a decent chunk of time in my little channel. I know how much work it takes to try and get any kind of audience, whatever, right? So if someone's got 50,000, 100,000, 200,000, whatever subs, it's incredible. Like, man, all credit to you. It's amazing.
Yeah.
But I'm starting to feel, and it's probably Ben's captured this in the question at the beginning, right? Which is that the releases now are a bit, I don't know, it just doesn't feel authentic anymore.
It's a little more structured, or a lot more structured, especially when you have that same video release all at the same day. I don't know where that came from. I don't know who started doing that, but maybe it's more bang for the buck if you just stagger them too. Like,
maybe
let a week pass, let another week pass, let a few days pass, and then keep building momentum instead of just like blasting everything all at once, and everyone's just got like, they're blinded by all these videos about the whatever new thing. And I agree with Devin Townsend. Like Devin went on a little bit of a diatribe with his new podcast about this.
Oh, did he?
And he was trying to articulate, how do I show the gear that I use without coming across as a guy who's just a shill, like just peddling gear, just being paid, or they're giving me this or whatever. He's like, I don't care if I paid for it or got it for free. I use it. So I'm only showing stuff I use, and I'm showing you how I use it, and I'm showing you how it helps me to be creative. And I think that aspect of it is pretty cool. Like, I think it's cool to have that sort of connection, as opposed to just, the format's all the same. Demo song, talk about it. Here's all the individual sounds as we tweak it, if it even goes that far.
Yeah.
And that's a cool, it works because you get the attention, then you get some more detail, and then you get the stuff for the nerds that really want to see all the settings. Most people don't care about the settings. They just want to hear the song, and they're like, "Oh, bye.
Yeah.
Sounds fucking awesome." You know, I want to play like that guy. Bye. You know, and it's such an interesting it's an interesting market we're in, because it's completely based on subjectiveness.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. It's good. It's good that a lot of people are in it too, because, you know, like certain people, they have like the way that they capture tones and stuff. It's pretty like they can put two different amps together and it sounds kind of close. So it's good to have different references, and then if you got if you're running really fine-tuned ears, you can hear the subtleties. Dude, actually, Kyle Bull, which it's really cool to see Kyle Bull in the last few years, really since like COVID, he started doing his YouTube channel a lot, and he's grown his channel a lot, and he's making some really cool shit. But he made this video, I think yesterday, and with 25 different dynamic mics on a speaker. Did you guys see that yet? Oh man, amazing. Same amp, same riff, 25 different dynamic mics placed the same way, and the like it sounds like 25 different amps.
Wow.
It's like, you know, it's like those little subtleties like that and how you're capturing the stuff means a whole lot in the end, you know.
Well, think about your signal chain. You know, you've got your guitar, maybe some pedals, amp, cab, and maybe something in the loop, whatever, doesn't matter. You know, the last thing your sound hits before your ears is the cab, right? And that's the most important part, and so many people forget that. You know, like the example I like to use, or just, you know, some variation thereof that day, you take the best rig in the world and you plug it into a little 8-inch speaker, it's going to sound like it's a little shitty Gorilla amp.
It sounds like shit.
Yeah,
exactly.
The reason the Gorilla sounds so shitty is the speaker. You could probably make that amp sound a lot better if you plugged in a 412 cab. You know,
fuck, it's the best. Oh fuck, it's the best thing ever made, and we don't know it yet.
That's the secret tone right there. The tone we've all been tracing.
The secret's out. Fuck.
It's my home.
We've been making fun of all these years.
Right. It's probably killer.
But
we're all going out of business. Fuck.
Actually, I demonstrated that with us. You ever played with those smoky amps? It's a little plastic thing that it fits in a carton or a pack. It fits in a pack of cigarettes. It takes a 9-volt battery.
I've seen
it's got a little speaker in it. You know, you plug into it, and it sounds like you're playing through a little transistor radio. You plug it in a 412 cab, and by God, it doesn't sound half bad.
Oh shit!
You put a pedal in front of it, it's like shit. What the hell am I doing right now? I got a 9-volt battery running in this 412 cab. It sounds amazing. But I don't know, that speaker cab being the last, you know, filter, essentially. Everything's a filter. Everything
makes a huge. It goes right back to what you said earlier on, man, which is like you have a reference cab. So in terms of like when you're working on a new circuit or a design or a mod or whatever, you kind of want to keep one. You know, you got to have that consistency, because if you're changing the cab all the time, then it's too many variables, right? You got to have that reference. It makes it's a huge part of the sound.
You can't listen to it flat because it sounds like garbage. You know, you always have to have a filter, and the speakers, you know, Celestion, Eminence, whatever, they all know what they're doing to a degree to make a speaker sound a certain way, and they're just making a filter, electromechanical filter that's filtering the signal before it hits your ears, and then when you put a mic in front of it, you got a whole nother filter. You know, you got a filter based on, and I'm saying a filter, but really people probably recognize the term impulse response better. But all an impulse response is trying to characterize a filter.
Yeah.
So and you have that microphone, the placement, the brand, you know, the brand and style of microphone, they all change the sound. They're all different filters. And it's not like a linear response thing at all. There's a lot going on, because you're talking about an electromechanical relationship between sound waves in the air and moving a diaphragm and electromagnetic, result of that diaphragm moving on both sides of the microphone and the speaker. It's really an interesting relationship. And
is
the air
is the chocolate factory ever getting those? You ever gonna make those in the chocolate factory?
Which ones?
Speakers.
I won't say no, but not anytime soon.
Okay.
We'll make transformers before we make speakers.
Say,
oh
man,
yeah,
transformers first.
Do that.
Oh, dude, that'd be killer, mate. We'll be lining them. We'll backing the truck up for transformers, man.
Oh, man.
Ben Murray. Hey Ben. Ben says saw 5 metal bands on the weekend, all guitarists using profilers. So it's an impressive to see a guy tame an amp. So this is like, I mean, there'd be no argument from you two, I would imagine, right? But there is.
Can you bring that back up?
An amplifier. Sorry, I'll bring it back up.
Question back up. Yeah, sorry.
No sense of excitement or danger, no challenge, and it's impressive to see a guy tame an amp. So it's interesting. I had a conversation with a guy this morning that, hey Joel, if you're listening, mate, that picked up that white Marshall, the Jose that I worked on. I actually featured it on the channel last week. We had this conversation, right? That a tube amplifier at volume, it's in the interaction you have with the guitar and the player, it's an instrument, right? And we were talking about there's kind of like, I know it's been spoken about a lot, but particularly people, who maybe not so young, there's a whole generation of players growing up that have never experienced it. And so when you think about the interaction of the amp with the cab and microphone and all that kind of stuff, the whole modeling side of things is kind of losing that, that part of the art form, I think.
Mm-hmm. Well, especially if you don't have onstage monitors, and you can't make your guitar sing anymore. I mean, you maybe to an extent through the PA, but it's not behind you. It's not right in front of you.
It's not the same, right?
With a wedge or whatever, you're all in ears and stuff. And yeah, you just can't get that same. I just think of like the singing lead tones that Satriani and Vike and Gilbert and all those guys that do, and Eric Johnson, and they manipulate the guitar in a way that I can never see that being possible with a silent stage. When you have a silent stage, I think of more things like technical thing. It's a very pre-programmed, very predictable set of music. It's not organic and experimental or like, improv. Like, you don't have that stuff in the moment like you did with Hendrix and with like just those early days in Zeppelin. And God, I mean, how cool was that, right? Like, all that stuff was why we are doing this now, through a couple generations perhaps, but depending on how old we all are. But
there's just something about actually playing through a real tube amp anyway, like just turning, like just all of that. Like it's a different experience. It's going to make, if like, obviously it's like you're making art when you play guitar, like when you write music, you're making art. So it's a different kind of experience anyway.
I think it's something that it's really hard to get that visceral response that you feel. When you just have in-ears playing a modeler.
Oh yeah, 100%. I would agree with that.
You're playing to a script at that point. You're not improvising. You're not feeling it.
I wonder when that stuff will actually catch up, like in a real way. Like it's close, like as far as it sounds, like it can get close, but the actual feel on the guitarist end is not there.
I mean, what if you look at this, like zoom out a little bit? This is like, what if
let's go zoom out. We'll zoom out.
Zoom out a little bit. I mean, what if you progress through another generation of guitar players that only play modelers and stuff, or by and large only play modelers, and the whole instrument is going to change as to how it's played and how people react to it.
Yes, that's true. But then one day those boys are going to find tube amps and they're going to go, holy shit.
I mean, is that already is that already happening? Like, is that? I mean,
it probably already is.
Generation of players, like, you only got to look at your Instagram feed or whatever and see the young guy, shredding with eight fingers on the bloody fretboard with his Strandberg guitar or whatever.
Yeah.
And 100% playing through a plug-in or a modeler or whatever.
Straight into interface, like doesn't understand what it's like to actually have the room move some air.
Well, this is it. And I think that like there's a thing about guitar, like playing technique, and things that you learn and evolve because you played through loud amps, or you do play through loud amps. Like being able to kind of like just simple things. Like one of the things I noticed with players, and you kind of level of, I guess, experience playing in live environments and so on, is like when they stop playing, do they roll the volume down or do they leave it on the guitar? You know what I mean? Like, it's a dead giveaway, right? Like,
right. When
guys not rolling down.
That's true.
Oh man, that's
true.
That's like cringe when someone plays an amp or something like that, and then they take the guitar off and set it on the amp, and the volume's full blast, so they're feeding back, and then they turn the amp off. I'm like, have you never learned how to use a volume control on the guitar? Like,
I know, man. I know.
It's such a habit, right? You guys do this too, I'm sure, where you're playing and you're not even plugged in, and you still turn the volume up and down on it.
Yes,
you're not even plugged in. it's that much of a habit, right?
100%.
And guys that complain about, I'm getting a lot of feedback or whatever. Like, well, okay, what kind of feedback? Oh, when I stop playing. Well, how loud's the amp? Well, it's cranked. I'm like, well, what?
You don't need a noise gate. You just need to use your hand.
Yeah. You can turn the volume down, dude. Like, that's all.
Just apologies to everyone in the chat. Just apologies. Sorry.
I'm sure if they're listening to this, it's because they are. You're all cheap.
Yeah.
It's a thing though, right? You can kind of see, like, and like people that are all at different stages of their playing career and all that. I get all that, right? Cool. But I think that I do wonder, right, when you think about this generation that's coming through, as you're just mentioning, Kyle, that if they've never kind of experienced that, then that's not going to evolve as part of their technique.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
So they'll leave the volume on when they put the guitar on the stand.
Exactly. It's not like we're making fun of person's intelligence or anything like that. It's just what they're used to. It's like,
this is it.
You're not used to having feedback. Maybe these guys learned guitar, guys or gals learned guitar with headphones and never actually had sound, right? Because they couldn't.
This is it, right? I mean, that stuff grew out of necessity, right? And then you do then also find out that your volume control will actually give you this huge palette of different sounds that you can access just simply by moving it around.
I mean, my prediction is that kind of to Shea's point, where they rediscover or discover for the first time a tube amp after maybe playing guitar 10 years and never actually plugging into a tube amp and having a cab actually move some air. They plug in and like, what the fuck? I've been missing this whole time. Or they'll be like, it's so loud and like I can't control it. Always sounds good when I turn it up, and like they might go either way with it. But I think there'll always be a subset of people that just appreciate that and go for like this, maybe boutique is such an overused word, but basically this non-mainstream solution. Maybe the mainstream solution is going to be digital and convenience, and it's all about just that. It's good enough, it's fine, whatever, and it'll just keep getting better, and okay, it's fine. But there's still going to be these guys that are like, I want the real old shit. Just like there's guys now that drive a Tesla and they have a 67 Camaro.
The pros are still recording with tube amps. Like the pros are still using those, and when they it's I would say most are going out on the road with digital stuff. Like, I don't know the percentage, but they're still recording with them. Most of them, I would think, from what I see.
Agree.
And maybe they're just taking the digital on the road to make it easier, because tube amps can, when you're turning up on a tube amp, I mean, obviously there can be failures. So.
But it's funny too with the volume thing. I think the thing that's overlooked as well is it's not necessarily about the tube amp being cranked and attenuated or being not sounding good unless it's turned up. again, it comes down to the speaker cabinet. That speaker, when the amp's low, that speaker's barely moving.
Yeah.
Mhm.
You know, it's
Yeah.
your
Yeah.
low frequency response is completely out the window.
Yeah.
You have no low frequency response. Your low frequency sensitivity is so low, but your high frequency sensitivity is really high. So it sounds fizzy. It sounds thin because there's no low end because the speaker's not moving, right?
That does matter. That
It's a
does
full
matter.
range. It's a full range driver. So
Yeah.
that's why our stereo systems have 2, 3, 4-way speakers, you know, to be able to balance all that
Yeah.
and not have that issue. So the secret is turn up the depth or resonance or
Yeah.
bottom, whatever that knob is called in your amp.
Yeah.
Turn that
Yeah.
up,
Yeah.
crank that up.
Yep.
You got
Yep.
that, it'll immediately sound better.
Yeah.
Immediately
man.
100 times better. And I think a lot of people too, they don't go out of their comfort zone with just even knobs. Like, oh, I didn't really bond with the amp. Like, I don't really like the gain channel unless I had the treble at 9 o'clock. And it's just too bright. I'm like, well, what's wrong with the treble being 9 o'clock if you like the sound? You know?
Guitar players are weird about knobs and settings.
Yeah. Oh man,
They think, you know, this is something we've never even chatted about before, Jason. But
yeah,
you know, if you know they play say a 5150 and then the knobs are set a certain way, and then they get a KSR and they're like, oh, okay, I'm gonna make this thing sound perfect. I'm gonna set the knobs the same way, and it totally sounds different. And you know, it's like they get real weird about that stuff, man. And it's just like you just have to like it doesn't matter if the knob is on 0 or it's on 10. As long as you think it sounds good, that's all that matters.
Mhm.
It doesn't all sound good at noon, okay?
Yeah.
But like you just take it to where you
this
want
is
and just be okay with it.
100%, man. And probably one of the reasons why a few amp designs that have, you know, come out have used audio taper treble pots rather than linear.
Yeah.
Because you can feel good about the world knowing that your treble pot's at midday.
Yeah.
You know? And you can sleep at night, you know, with your OCD. But it's darkening the amp, right? Because it's an audio taper pot rather than a linear. It's a weird thing. But
And what about? Oh, sorry, go ahead.
No, I was just going to say it's a weird thing, but it's real. Like, yeah, people do not want to run their tone pots all around the place. They like to have them around midday.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
I'm interested to you know, the interesting thing to me with that, the psychology of that, this sort of visual psychology, is what happens then if you're playing through a modeler, but doesn't
Yeah.
have knobs with a pointer on them. It just has parameters. And do you get OCD about those parameters? If it goes 0 to 10, does everything have to be on 5?
Oh, God, you know they
it could
do.
be only 4 to 6, you know?
Oh, you know they
Or they either do or they just don't care at all. They just make it sound good. And really, that's what they need to do with an amp too. But
Yeah.
I don't know. Like, it could go either way. Like,
I would say don't worry about it. Like if it, you know, like some guys, if you like the presence knob on 10 and somebody's like, oh, how could you do that? Blah, blah, blah. Dude, if you like that, do it. Like, don't worry about what anybody else says about it. Like, just make the amp sound how you like it and then just play, you know?
We got a super chat from Lyle here. Thank you, brother. Man, I appreciate that. Lyle says, how many modeler players ever play dry? Yeah, that's also a really good point, right? Learn what the guitar knobs can give, or learn about pickup speaker interaction, not just high gain feedback. Yeah, it's a good point, man, because this stuff is, because it's just there and it's on tap. Yeah,
they're rolling the volume down to get your cleaner tone or your mid gain tone,
or
whatever. And that's a lost thing too. When you know, the modeler just doesn't respond as well. I don't think. I mean, at least none that I've played with. But you know, even a solid state pedal, it's really hard to get that to work as well as it does with the tube amp. You know, you have just a lot different headroom and saturation and stuff that occurs with the tube triodes than you do with the solid state stuff to make rolling off work as well. But
we got a question here about parallel gain stages. So Johan is asking, anything speaking against. So I think you're saying, you know, is it bad with a design that have parallel gain stages that are mixed together. So, for example, one asymmetric, one symmetric clipping, and then mix that together, or let's say a clean sound mixed in. I guess a little bit like jumping channels on an old plexi, I guess is the way to think of this. Have you guys experimented with any of that stuff much?
I have not. No,
I've done. Let me read the question again here.
I actually need to take my pit stop now.
Go ahead, man.
I'll be next.
Yeah, go ahead. I don't. All I can say is I have messed with parallel gain stages and high gain circuits, and I think they're great. I think that it's parallel gain stages are not used enough in modern stuff. It's kind of rare to see them, and
yeah, you mean
you can really get some good stuff going on with those in a different way. And in our world where so much stuff is based on other stuff, and taken from this and then taken from it's like inspiration from this and here and there. This is one part of the high gain amp realm that it should be used more to get to a newer place, I think, because it hasn't been used too much.
No, this is it, and it's interesting because I think what you're hitting on there is where you have two triodes, right, in the same preamp tube, tied together, with a common plate and cathode, yeah, and speaking with Dave a lot about the the stuff that Jose would do back in the day.
He did that, didn't he?
Yes.
On the front end?
Yes. So the gain stage, we all know, right? I mean, I'm sure people that listen to the chat have blabbed on about this a lot, right? But and as has Dave and many others, but the classic Jose mod with the, master volume added post-tone stack, but just the gain stage in front, he would do a bunch of different kind of variations of that, and one of them was definitely a parallel gain stage like you described there, right? Where you just kind of tie the plate, the cathode, and the grids together, but with a common plate and cathode. And I've come to understand that the the Steve Vai amp that Pete Thorne featured on.
Oh, the Jose.
Jose.
Yeah.
That was a parallel.
Okay.
That had a parallel stage out front. Yeah, pretty sure.
Man, they're just they're definitely, man, as far as like amp design goes, parallel, you can get a lot more, like especially if you stack it down the line, like don't put it up front.
Yeah,
dude, you can find some really crazy shit going on there. And
as you say, man, not many, there's a few out there, few production amps that have done that, but not many. Man. Not many at all. Carl, there's a question.
I missed all the secrets of how to make an awesome sounding amp.
It's okay. We'll tell you next time we go out to the bar.
Man, you missed. That was the best part of the whole stream, right there. You just missed it.
Hey, real quick, Jason. A buddy of mine,
he missed it all. He missed it all right there.
A buddy of mine just texted me, Jason. He said he can't comment. He said it says for subscribers only, but he's a subscriber.
I don't know what that is then.
I did see you had. I saw that you had subscribers only on the comments. Did you?
It's just a way of getting, like, I don't know, like auto moderating, if you like, right? Because it's like, I mean, you only got to subscribe for 1 minute.
Yeah, subscribe. If you're not subscribed and you're in this chat, subscribe.
I'm not sure what that would be, man. Like, I don't know.
One guy says use phone app.
Yeah, maybe.
Maybe refresh it.
There's a question here from Anthony for you, Kyle. So you could do your best to answer it, man. Or you could just decline to comment. It's up to you. Can you describe your involvement or experience with Omega? In my Obsidian, I see a familiar name sharpied out, plus the look of the amps. How does the tone approach differ to KSR? Just, man, like, if you don't want to tackle that, that's cool, right? It's up to you.
Yeah, putting me under the gun on that one. No comment.
Nice.
That's fine.
Fair enough, man.
I don't want to. I don't want to. You know, there. So in my business, we build for like 10 other companies, 10 or over 10 now,
Yeah.
and I also do. I mean, I do. It's no secret. I do consulting and engineering, and we do manufacturing, and we have this great facility, and frankly, like KSR itself is just a part of it. Like there's all these other companies that help keep this place going, um, and and I have non-disclosure agreements with basically every one of them. So
Yeah,
it's like
those exist.
Yeah, man,
Yeah.
it's a perfect answer, because if you're doing that kind of work, I mean, and I've done some PCB work for other builders as well, and of course you're going to reuse some of your component library and other things, right? So if you looked at any PCB that I've done, someone could probably look at them and go, oh, they all kind of look similar, layout,
Yeah.
technique, the component, the footprints, this kind of stuff, right? So of course you're not just going to throw all that away and start from scratch every time you do some work for someone else.
Not mine, not my skeleton key.
I didn't mention any names, man. I just said other builders, you know.
Yeah, and it's you leave your fingerprints everywhere.
Yeah,
As an engineer, or even just as a facility that manufactures something, you have constraints in your manufacturing, and those constraints also drive the final look and feel of a product to some degree as well. So, there's some things that are certainly obvious that we have a hand in. There's other things that are probably less obvious that we have a hand in.
Yeah.
And because we do everything from amp builds, some pedals, head shells, cabinets, speaker cabinets, head shells.
Yeah.
But by and large, most of the OEM work we do is speaker cabinets and head shells.
Yeah.
And they're for companies.
You guys drop ship? Do you guys drop ship for other companies?
Yeah, absolutely.
On the speaker cabinet stuff?
Yeah, speaker cabinets. We build them, load them, they're ready to go. They just leave our door, and you don't know where it came from.
Yeah.
I mean, you do. You could see the return address or whatever, but
Right.
that could be whatever we want it to be.
Sure.
We can make it look like I could ship it, and it looks like it's coming from Bloomington.
Well, I saw those things, and they are fucking high quality as hell, man. I mean,
yeah, it's wicked, man. That was an eye opener, and awesome to see that you've expanded into doing that, right? Because the industry needs it, man.
Well, you wanted to do furniture before you did amps, so it makes sense.
and it's like the woodworking side of things. There's a big barrier to entry there for most people because you need that wood shop. You need all those tools, unless you're sitting there building them by hand with a circular saw or something like that. But I don't recommend trying to do any volume. Even with a table saw, it's tough to do any sort of volume. Get a CNC machine, and all of a sudden you can start cranking them out. And then labor doesn't have to be super skilled. I mean, it has to be skilled, but it doesn't have to be like, they don't have to be woodworkers, like trained woodworkers to
how hard is it to keep that initial area clean? I mean, with all the work that's going in that that first area that you took us into, with kind of like the initial wood cutting and the lasers and all that stuff. I mean, yeah, you're good, Jason. dude, how hard is that? I mean, you gotta be just damn near cleaning all the time, right?
Yes and no. So it used to be a lot worse before we got our dust collection system installed.
Oh, okay.
Once we got that installed, it's a whole shop dust collection deal, and we can run every machine at once. So it's fantastic. So CNC's running. You can run 2 table saws. You can have sanders going. You can be routing all at the same time, and you get some fine dust, at the end of all that, but it's not so bad.
It's like when me and Jason were there, it was super clean.
Yeah.
I mean, that area was pretty spick and span for what's going on there. So yeah.
And ultimately, I'm gonna add a giant laser to that room, and that will we might build a wall or something to separate the wood shop more, just because we'll have like fire things with wood things in the same room. But ultimately, it's a relatively clean space. I mean, our shipping area,
it was clean.
and like the shipping area is, in that same room too. So if something sits out for a while, you might get a little dust on it, but typically we try to cover it with plastic, and that's not an issue. But
so do you pack in that? So I mean, it's kind of hard to visualize it because most people. Have you ever done a video of your shop?
oh yeah, we've done a lot of live streams and stuff, but we haven't
Just
done
a
like
live stream.
Yeah, I don't
Can't
know
really get the essence of like really. I mean, it's so massive. Get like capturing the essence of everything that's going on there is just got to be. I mean, there should be like somebody should make a damn professional cut of that. Fucking Premier Guitar, whoever.
Yeah, it'd be cool.
People like
do a
that.
shop tour
That
kind
would
of
be
thing.
good, right?
Yeah.
This is Dylan says Kyle builds spaceships in his spare time.
Yeah, he did when he was 10.
True story. Yeah. When he was
He's way past that now.
he was correct, mate. I mean, building tube amps is way harder than that.
I hope that didn't sound the way it did.
No,
not
at all, dude. Not at all.
Everyone's
when I mentioned the age, it wasn't trying to do anything other than just illustrate
not at all.
Time. But
you're extremely humble, Kyle. I think I thought the first time I met you, I knew that.
Well, thank you.
Yeah,
Mike. Hey, Mike. Good to see you on the chat, man. Mike wants to know, of course, because he's the rack guy. Did you ever make a rack mount preamp?
I've not made one yet. It is on my list, and I've had some option paralysis with it because I had probably half the people tell me do it like the Series Investa, make it solid state, make it awesome, make it less expensive. And then another half people say, no, it's got to be tube. It's got to be a tube rack pre, not solid state. So maybe the only answer is both, but I don't know yet. It would be interesting to have actually both technologies in one unit. That's what I've been thinking about lately. Because like I've experienced that in the past, with amps I've owned, and they had like modeling in tube or some sort of solid state in tube and that kind of thing, and it's like it was never great, but now I probably could be better because I've got some good tech with the Series Investa, and I've got some good tech with the amps, and I could kind of blend both of those worlds because really they are different.
You made that awesome power amp too.
Yeah, right. The PA50. I think I'll do a rack power amp, soon too.
That would be killer.
Yeah, everyone's asking for that.
Yeah,
that's a fucking sick product, man. I think that it's like I love that stuff, and it's got voicing switches on it. Yeah,
it's got a hi-fi guitar switch, which essentially all it does is it makes the amp like it behaves more like a guitar power amp versus more like a flat response power amp.
Yeah,
and it's a really simple circuit, but it does the job, and it really gives you, like, when you're in hi-fi, it sounds a lot more like like a power station or some sort of kind of more lifeless just power amp. It's just sterile.
I like the design of it. I mean, it looks keeping it. I mean, just so small.
It's a cool form factor, isn't it? It's kind of like you grab and go kind of. Yeah.
Super.
I'm interested in the market for rack gear, like in terms of like who's buying it. I mean, I know Mike's buying rack gear, but like it's a very much I think of it as maybe incorrectly as a bit of a nostalgia thing.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
like, I mean, there's that. It's niche, but with more touring guys too. I mean, you can capture them really easily when they already have a rack and you just throw some stuff in it.
And they all do, man. This is it, right?
But you're right though. It's like the regular everyday player probably does not have a rack, and if they do, it's a little 4-space thing with their Kemper or their Axe Effects,
correct,
and a power conditioner or something.
So that's the challenge, right? To get the X3 out and get the get the tube rack shit in. Yeah, man, that's what we want to do.
And I think I'm going to do it for sure because the rack power amp, it needs to happen at some point. But I mean, from a business standpoint, think of this: like if I just came out with a rack power amp first, well, then automatically I'm competing with a few other rack power amp companies and designs. The PA50, I think, was really a truly unique product in that it's literally a compact power amp in a form factor that I've never seen before.
Yeah, that's same, dude. It's that's what I was saying before. It's fucking sick. I mean, it's the way that it's awesome. It's tiny.
So you see it, like you see it, you know what it is. You know, and I think that's what's cool about it. That's what I'm proud about it the most, is that you see it and you know what it is.
Yeah.
And it's hard to design a product to where you just glance at it and you know exactly what it is.
Yeah.
Like you glance at a dual rectifier, you know exactly that it's a dual rectifier. You glance at a Marshall, it's a Marshall, or it's one of the 9,000.
That's true.
You know?
There's nothing that looks like that. I mean, and
a look and feel, you know.
I mean, the Orion that you did too. I mean, you know, these are pretty recent products. You're kind of on to some different shit in your later years of design, which is cool, man. I mean, it's original, right? So it's cool,
and
cool to see that.
That's what I meant what I said too, and I don't own any other amps. You know, I don't. So, you know, I just draw inspiration from my own dreams and what I see and what I just talking with people and just getting ideas and whatever. You know, we could talk about sounds. Like what I like about designing with audio and not actually having a lot of reference stuff available to me is that we can sit here and talk about a design or talk about a sound, and then I can try to mimic my perception of that.
Yeah.
You know, with my design, and I'm not actually hearing another design. I'm just trying to mimic what I perceived as to what you were describing.
Yeah.
Or, you know, like when I talk to guys about mods, like what mods they want, and they want this or that. I'm like, okay, I'll do that. And I've been fairly good at doing that. And it's just a matter of being able to tie like that feedback loop of your ears to your technical know-how, how to narrate that.
That's an interesting perspective, man. And I've heard a lot of artists say that in terms of, you know, they respond to questions of like, well, what are you listening to at the moment? And they say nothing.
Yeah.
Because I don't want to hear what other people are doing, because I'm doing my own thing and I don't want to be influenced by it.
Yep.
You know?
Exactly.
Yeah.
And I feel like it's a similar thing. I feel a similar way about it. Like my buddy Joel from Killswitch Engage, you know, he doesn't listen to metal. Like he plays metal every night, but he goes home and listens to like bluegrass and jazz and rockabilly or whatever, you know, like whatever he's in the mood for. That's not metal. He doesn't listen to metal. He doesn't play metal.
That's cool, man. Yeah.
He's got like a bluegrass band.
And so do you.
Yeah, correct.
Yeah.
When we came over there, you know, we after, what did we do? We had the shop tour. We went to that restaurant you took us to. We had some more cheeseburgers. Jason had more cheese. He's like, I've never had more cheeseburgers on this trip than I ever had. But that was an amazing place you took us to, that first one, right down the road from KSR.
Oh, bourbon.
Had a couple beers, had some food, dinner, went back, and then we played the Orion for a bit.
Yeah,
and we went to your place, and we walked in, and you're like, "Yeah, here's all my jazz records." He's like, "This is where I'm living. I'm just in here listening to jazz all the time."
That's true, man.
Yeah,
it's great music to relax to. I love it. It doesn't. It's like the cognitive load of it is at a different level than, I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, like, if it's like somehow like relaxing or something like that, or like, I don't know, it's got a different vibe.
I just love modal jazz. Like we're just, you know, Miles Davis, Coltrane, Coleman Hawkins. Like
I like that shit too, man. I mean,
Gillespie, like just different dudes that can take something and just run with it and run 9 different ways, all in the same song, and then you've got, you know, a few other musicians and they're all playing off each other. And
this is the improv, and cut live, right? Just
like with one mic or whatever, you know what I mean?
Yeah,
100%.
And then magic, and then it's just all magic. It's just pure magic.
So fucking good now. and it still sounds so fucking good. And the experience of that is just like comfortable for me. But then it's also interesting because you can dig deeper, because at the surface it just sounds like, it's like whatever, it's just something. But then when you start listening, you're like, wow, there's so much more going on. And so you can experience that on a couple different levels, is what I'm saying, I guess.
Vinyl
Metal,
too.
I'm usually just like, with metal, I'm just going like
vinyl is so great for music like that, because when you put it on, you're just forced to sit through it. It's like
there's a whole different experience with vinyl.
You have to get the whole vibe of the whole thing, man. And it goes different places, and it's really
you don't put it on in the background, right? You put it on and actually listen to it. It's a whole different.
You get exposed to stuff that you've never heard before, that wasn't on the radio.
Yeah,
I love vinyl from the standpoint of like going to the store and just being able to flip through stuff and just buy a record based on how cool the cover looks. If with streaming,
I saw you post about that. You're collecting stuff.
Just like the old days, right?
Did I post something like that? You said, Shea?
Oh, I just saw you posting about, basically collecting records, and you're like, I'm out of hand. I'm buying too many records.
I've stopped now. I've put myself on I've got a moratorium going on.
It's a sickness for sure, man.
Everybody that I know who collects records has gone that way. Like, it's like they go to their house, and then like their whole entire wall is just covered in vinyl, and it's just like, okay, bud.
I've just started,
went a little far with this one.
It's like, why did I just buy Injustice for All? I've got that.
Yeah.
On CD. I've got that on streaming. I've got that everywhere. But no, I bought the record because it's throwing on Justice
you have
for
to
All
do it, man.
It's
a part of the experience. So Lou says, hit the like, guys. Yeah, definitely, man. Hit the like. It all helps. Rick says, great chemistry here. Yeah, awesome, man.
Well, we've known each other for 12 years, apparently.
Yeah. 20, I thought it was 20, man.
Oh, 20, okay.
I thought it was 20. All Killer No Filler says, a big thank you to Kyle for sending me amps and cabs to Papua New Guinea. Well, that's killer, man. That's pretty close to Australia, PNG. No one else would.
That dude's cool as hell. Repeat customer too. It's like we've done some stuff, and that shipping bill,
I can imagine,
that's unlike any shipping bill I've seen. I think in cases his shipping was as much as his products, like or a vast majority of it, 50% maybe, like 50% of the product cost or whatever. But yeah, that was and we didn't have any problems actually getting it in there. It was just expensive, but
that's wicked. Yeah.
It's cool. It's cool, from a builder's perspective, and you guys are seeing that all the same. It's like,
there we go.
How cool is it to have stuff that you've built, just spread around the world? Like it's just like you're. Well, I'm not gonna use that analogy.
I know exactly what you're gonna say.
I'll hold back on that one, but it's just super cool to see the fruits of your labor spread out.
Yeah, man.
And,
yeah,
for sure.
Hey, it reminds me of a question that I did want to ask, and it's for we could probably all answer this question, and it's kind of related to what you're saying there, man. What's your emotional response when you see one of your amps up for sale? How does it? Do you kind of care, don't care, like whatever? Because I know what that feels. I've got my own experience with that, right? I'm sure we all do.
It depends. I mean, it's like there's a lot of the guys in the space like to try new stuff, and they move stuff, and they're always just cycling through stuff. So,
yep,
those guys, I don't feel like when I started, like in the early days, I would be like, oh God, fuck, there's one for sale. Or, I mean, obviously it's like it's like the reason we do it is we want to make stuff that people like, but there's also a different aspect to that. It's not necessarily that they don't like it. It's, well, if this thing's worth fucking $3,500, and it's like there's other issues going on there too, man. So I don't know. I don't get too butthurt about it anymore. And plus, honestly, it's good for business. So when things go on Reverb for sale in the used market, for me, my stuff is like kind of on the rare end, so it gets more attraction from new buyers that will find it, and then they'll reach out to me. So it's a plus. It's a plus, and it's a negative, because you want to make the guys happy and get them to keep it. But
it's only a plus though for so long, because it eventually, when you have a few thousand pieces of things that you've made out in the world, then,
right?
Then the used market becomes not, I don't want to say saturated, but it becomes more continuously stocked.
Yeah. It's competing against yourself almost.
Yeah,
is it?
It is. Yeah. So, and as you're able to produce more, you're, you
adding to that.
Yeah, you no longer have the scarcity, or it's less scarcity than just being able to buy it on the used market. And if it's there, then someone just buys that. So that's actually the caveat to that. Like in the beginning, yeah, it is a thing where the used amps could be taking more money in than a new one, because you don't have to wait. But then we don't have to pay for that immediate gratification anymore. Then kind of all bets are off. You can get it used and cheaper. So just get it used, especially if the economy is down like it is. But and that kind of drives used prices down as well when things aren't moving. So
it's still it's still not where it was. I mean, you look back a couple years ago on what used Marshalls, like if you just take Marshall as a standpoint for this, it's like you can get a used JCM 800 years ago for like $1,200, or like a reissue, or 80. I bought countless 1987 X amps for less than $1,000, and it's like now all that, it's like everything's kind of doubled in that way. But I do pay attention to all that stuff. I mean, it's a good indicator on where the market is.
I do remember, I mean, to the original question though, I remember the first time I saw a posting for one of my amps for sale. And I'm like, I knew exactly whose it was. I knew exactly what amp it was, because I built all these things, and it is kind of heartbreaking. It's like,
I know. Yeah,
it's like your dog ran away. Doesn't want to come back home.
It is. It's kind of yeah. In the beginning, it's a little personal, right?
It's very personal, because like, you spent like a week of your life or 60 hours of your life or whatever building this thing, and all by yourself, and then the guy was so happy and elated, and then he gets, when he waits for 3 months and he gets it, and then 3 months later it's for sale, or a year later, or 3 weeks later, it just depends on who.
Yeah. Oh man, 100%, man. Like you kind of you get, you get, I guess, used to it, and we probably.
And it's a very atypical thing for a manufacturer to be any sort of emotionally connected to the buyer. So it's also a unique experience for us as builders or manufacturers or whatever we want to call ourselves.
I'll tell you one thing about this though, like, because I've gone through this. I've been in, I've been doing the mods for a good amount of years, and then going into production. They all eventually, it's like a game of Plinko. The amps all eventually disappear. Like if you have so many, they all end up disappearing and like going, like, it's like you look at Mark Cameron, right? Like he's put out probably a shit ton of amps, right? And they're worth quite a bit of money, but you can't find them. They all eventually find a home.
He hasn't built nearly as many as it sounds like he's built.
Oh shit! He might have kept a few.
We're always going to go there, man. I remember you saying that to me, Shea, when we had this conversation. And I was like, needed a shoulder to cry on because I saw an amp of mine that was put up for sale, and you said, dude, they always bounce around and then they find their forever home.
Yep.
Don't worry about it.
Yeah. Don't worry about it.
It is funny though. Like you have, like I've noticed a couple. Like I don't know why or anything. Like I've not seen these amps again. But there's just a couple amps that I've noticed that have just never found a permanent home. Like they're on their like ninth owner, but there's only a couple of them. But they are there. I'm like, is this thing just a lemon? Like, did I fuck something up and it just doesn't sound as good as it should, and that's why it's just moving around. I always want to bring those back and figure.
I was going to say you should buy it.
I feel the exact same way, Kyle. I feel that exact same way. Like there's some that will just keep popping up. I'm like, Jesus, please somebody send that to me.
Yeah,
let me get that to where it's like let me.
Oh crap! I put a 4.7K in the tone stack.
Yes, no, it's gonna be something like that, right? Because we all make mistakes. Brad says, Kyle, I don't know a great deal about the history of KSR. Can you explain the difference between amps that are badged Rhodes and amps badged KSR? I've seen the Colossus badge both ways.
It's a good question.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's basically, it goes back to like 2014-ish, I think, or 15-ish. Rhodes Amplification was what I started the company as in 2009 as an LLC, and the everything I made was branded the same. Then there was a trademark dispute that came into my lap unexpectedly. From it's not even it's such a screwed up story because it's really just a lawyer that owns the trademark that polices it, and he was trying to, frankly, I'll tell the story as it was, he was literally trying to charge me to use my own name,
that you were born with,
that I was born with on my products, and there's a reason I used my own name, and it's actually in honor of my grandfather, but that's another story because he was the first entrepreneur that I knew and I looked up to, and his company was Rhodes, and that just hit me in such a wrong way that I steered completely clear of that guy, and and told him to screw off, and I just came up with another brand, which is very it took a lot of thought and deliberation to use my own initials for the brand.
Well, you've made it better. I mean, it's like,
but the joke at the time, like,
you've done yourself right on that. You've done your grandpa right on that.
Yeah, so. It was it was one of those things where it was early enough in the business where I didn't think at the time that I needed to invest in a continuous debt, essentially, that I was going to have to pay to this random dude who had no dog in the hunt other than a legal hunt,
fuck you,
or a legal whatever. So
it's your name, man. It's like it's interesting, isn't it? Like,
so it's interesting because in trademark law, which I dove into a little bit with all this stuff, surnames now are not approved as trademarks, as registered
That's
trademarks.
Not enough,
really.
Yeah. But at the time when that original Rhodes trademark was enacted by Harold Rhodes originally, who invented the Rhodes piano, it was not a law. This was back in the 60s or whatever it was. Whatever year it was, and and that trademark has essentially just been renewed over and over again ever since, and it's grandfathered.
I already knew what it was before you said that.
But it wasn't Harold Rhodes that did it. It's the attorney that owns the trademark that he stole from Harold Rhodes'
probably
family.
Fucking owns the company now. I mean, that's
he did. It's I shouldn't even. It's liable.
Yeah, don't.
Yeah, like anyway, the thing is that trademark was owned by another gentleman that was not a gentleman, and
that's a good way to say it.
And I steered clear and just started another brand. However, my company is still Rhodes Amplification LLC. If you look at the back of every amp or every product
I see that
we make, you'll see Rhodes Amplification LLC. It's the exact same company.
Yep. And your website, I noticed it on your website too. It says that.
Yeah, it's just one of those things where that's the company and KSR is a brand, and you see it really all over the whole world in all industries. You know, it's a common thing that a brand name is different than the actual company name, and
Oh yeah,
and really I'm embracing this further because with our expansion in OEM work, we're going to have more brands and companies that kind of spawn out of this building that
yeah,
are ours, but
yeah.
in addition to KSR.
Oh, that's killer.
So
That's good.
KSR will be, our.
Me and Jason have been working on one. We're spawning a new one. We don't have to talk about it now, but yeah, I mean, yeah, we're doing, yeah, we're into that stuff too. I mean,
JS Enterprises. What's it called?
JS Enterprise. There you go. We just got another name. It's a collaboration that we've been working on.
It's called Shason.
Yeah.
Jason, damn, that's pretty good.
Shason.
Jason's pretty good. I don't know if it's got a catch to it, but it's
yeah, we'll keep trying.
It's clever.
You can't actually see it, but there's it's dark enough that it's just silhouetted, but there's an amp sitting right at the top of that stack there.
Oh, I see a chassis.
Little prototype, yeah. More on that.
Maybe Rhodes Engineering and Manufacturing could help you with.
Yeah, this is it.
Well, damn, that would even shit, Jason. Maybe we should talk about that.
Yeah. Well, yeah.
Yeah, we should talk. We should. Okay, so
pivot the live stream. Now it's a business discussion.
Okay, now we're into business talk. Okay, it's fine.
Have a public business discussion and negotiation.
We've only got, so basically me and Jason have been working on a collaboration amp, and we're gonna release not a bunch of them, but it's kind of it's the collaboration stuff. We haven't sourced anything yet on it as far as like the things, all the design work is done. So yeah, we'll just hit you up, Kyle, and then hopefully you can just do the whole fucking thing for us, or just not the whole thing, but maybe we could get the head shells and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and we can help with the chassis, and
yeah,
we can stuff circuit boards, and we can head shells and all
God,
that.
we could just make them forever if we do that. Hey, Jason,
you guys mentioned machines earlier. I've got 4 new machines since you've been here.
Oh God, really?
Oh, no way.
That's insane.
No way. What are they?
Well, okay, maybe it's only 3.
Okay, you don't got to go into the details. It's fine. I believe you.
Yeah, I have no doubt.
I believe you. I know.
I've seen the Chocolate Factory, and I'm not surprised there's more.
I don't think this man sleeps at night. You don't sleep at night, do you? You're just like,
no, I don't.
Working 18 hours a day, and then.
Well, you were chatting with me last night on Facebook Messenger, Kyle, and it must have been God knows what time it was for you.
I've been on this new schedule lately. I've been doing so much work that I've been working till 6 a.m. I sleep for 4 hours. I start working again at 10.
Fuck.
And
whoa.
Oh God.
And that's really what I've been doing for this week.
Whoa.
I thought I've been working hard this week. Fuck, man.
That's insane, man.
I mean, this is actually a break for me.
I feel the same way. I actually feel the same way, dude. This feels like a break for me too.
Lyle says he needs to meet both you guys, so you guys should sort that out.
Lyle, where are you based out of?
Was he in Alabama or somewhere?
Lyle's in Memphis, I think.
Memphis. Okay.
Yeah, Tennessee. He's in Memphis. I don't know how. What is that? 4 hours from you guys, something like that.
A little bit more. Probably 5 or.
Okay.
6, well, not too far.
Ballpark, yeah. My FedEx driver is from Memphis. He's the funniest guy I know.
I love Tennessee, man. Oh my God, Tennessee is such an amazing state in the United States.
And I mean, awesome. the music scene there is just insane, right? And then
it's so good. It's very country. I mean, I spent a lot of time in Nashville. I almost moved to Nashville before I came to Bloomington, and It's very country, but man, it's just the amount of player. Like I remember when I went there, the amount of like amazing musicians that I met, I was just blown away by. It's like you could just, I mean, they're everywhere. Just amazing musicians everywhere.
Mm-hmm. It's a good town to start an amp company, probably. But
oh god, it would be amazing to do that there.
You have a million potential customers, but I'm not sure how much money they have. That's the problem, because there's a million musicians.
Yeah.
Yeah, this is it.
Not bad.
A lot of people in the same market.
What you have is a million people who want to test your product for you.
Yeah. Yes. next time I come to the States, we'll go there. Well, that'll be fun.
You probably haven't been in Nashville, have you?
No, I haven't been in Nashville.
Yeah, dude. When you come back, we have to go down there.
Well,
it's beautiful. It's gorgeous too. I mean, it's a gorgeous place.
And just stroll down Broadway and hit every bar, and there's a different band playing
every night.
Yeah. Every night of the night. Doesn't matter if it's Thursday, Friday, Sunday, Tuesday.
Can't wait.
If you like beer, that's a dangerous place to be.
Why do you say if?
If you like beer, it's a dangerous place to be, man.
You like beer, so
you can find a party really quick down there. You know,
yeah. You like beer, so it's a dangerous place.
Especially three guys who've known each other for 20 years.
Yeah, this is it, man. Luke says, Jason, is there where you'll discuss a bit more about the Silver Jubilee circuit? I haven't done anything on the Silver Jubilee in terms of videos or live streams or whatever, but pretty good idea, I think, to do something on that. Shea, I know it's a circuit you've spent a bit of time delving into in the last month.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
done a few of them now. Yeah.
You
should, but yeah, you should definitely,
like, you modded them, or you built something.
Yeah, I've modded some. Yeah, I did a mod to one. Talked about it on the live stream with Dave a little bit, but it was just kind of like a bucket list amp for me. Like I wanted to just do it, and plus I like a challenge. I hadn't, it's like diving into something different. Challenge is good. So, very different circuit. Very different circuit. I mean, I think how that came to be, because that came out in '87, I think.
Yeah, somewhere around there. Yep.
I think that I don't know too much about the lineage of it. I know that the same guy who made the JCM 800 or the 2203 Master Volume JMP also created this circuit. And then also a few years prior to that, Engel had came out and designed the Engel Straight. And I think that there's some lineage there a couple years prior that ended up, influencing this Jubilee.
Really? I didn't know that. Yeah, that's interesting.
And Bogner's in that same realm.
Because it's a massive departure. Yeah, I mean, it's a huge departure from what preceded it at Marshall, like in terms of architecture and design.
What was so Engel, the guy who started that company, I guess his name was Edmund Engel, and he was just a guitar player. And then he hired a designer to work on the early stuff. And what was his name? I want to look it up real quick. You guys could talk while I find it.
Yeah, just while we're doing that, I'm gonna punch through a couple of other comments here. So John says, "I'm just here to give Kyle crap." You know, John?
Yeah. So John has a Colossus, and I met John the first time at a Gear and Beer Fest that Chris Tachek put on in Chicago back in, like, this was early 2010-ish, 2011 maybe. I took that, it was maybe in 2010, because I took that first Colossus up there, and that's when I met John the first time.
Yeah, he's just said there, got to say, the first Colossus prototype was pretty impressive.
Yeah, so there's a funny story about that. Like, I had this amp I brought up there, and I knew all these guys from, well, I knew John, I knew Chris, and a few like Neil Davis, and a few of these guys from the Huge Racks Inc. forum.
Oh yeah.
You remember that forum, or were you guys part of it?
Yep.
It was a little less traveled. It was a little more like niche group, but it was guys that loved rat gear, but it's also just a cool group of guys that were just a little bit more interesting or easygoing, or like, I don't know how to put it. They just had a different vibe that I gelled with more than guys on like other forums. And it was kind of like this cool forum that was just this subset of people, and we all were very like-minded. And Chris put on this Gear and Beer Fest up in Chicago, and I went up there with Colossus and a cab and that kind of stuff. And the amp sounded great, but I had this horrible problem that was exposed, where I had optimized, or what I thought was optimized, some input filtering on the amp, and completely exposed it to RF potential.
Oh fuck.
To RF to receiving radio stations, right?
Yeah.
And I had no idea, because where I was at in Lafayette in my basement, I didn't have the
You didn't have that problem.
I
Yeah.
didn't have the RF energy. I didn't have that RF energy, right? That is in Chicago.
Yep.
So here we are in Chicago, and it's like this.
I've been down this road.
Spanish radio station was as loud as the guitar sound, almost, right? So like, people are playing, it sounds freaking amazing. Stop playing, it's like, and it turned into be just a joke, and like everybody took it as a joke, and nobody, like, you know, faulted me for it or whatever, because it was, you know,
just play along.
Yeah,
this is it, man.
Play along, man.
It was a feature.
It was such a, like, a funny experience, so looking back on it, because it's one of those things where like everyone's like, you know, someone's playing, like, yeah, fuck yeah, and then there's like group guys around, and it's literally almost like a stage. Like, we were on it, we were, I guess, technically on a stage. There's a shitload of amps, and there's just a bunch of seats, and it's like a bunch of people just watching the guy play and try out the amp, and it was a little awkward in that regard, because it's almost like the guy's like on display and whatever. But then I'm up there and I'm tweaking stuff and doing whatever, and it's sounding awesome, it's great and all that stuff, and it's like they stop, and all of a sudden it's like this, and everyone just laughs, and it's like it turned into just being a joke. But everybody appreciated the fact that the amp sounded fucking awesome, and that's really what mattered and what came out of it.
Yeah, man.
Yeah.
And now it's just a joke we can laugh at, and I fixed the problem. But you just don't know these problems that you have until you're in different environments, and that's just another unique thing with guitar amps, is like, you could ship it somewhere, and all of a sudden you have this problem come about that you don't expect, because of power, because of RF, because of guy's guitar, his rig, whatever. I mean, how many times have you gotten a tech support email where it's like, oh, you know, blah blah blah, this happened, da 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 da, and it's like they have a bad cable, and
oh god,
you know, or they plugged a pedal in backwards.
That hurts my stomach.
You know, and it's because we are so accessible, and we are the ones that are selling them the product that they are now using and trying to test out, that then we are the ones that they go to when it doesn't work, but it's actually not even something in the rig. And I think the key to all that stuff is just to help the guy out and completely remain level-headed with it.
Absolutely.
And then just laugh about it later, right? And you end up with kind of a thing to expect. You know, if somebody comes to you like, oh, I don't have any sound out of this. Well, did you try this? You try this? You sure you tried a different speaker cable? You sure you tried a different guitar cable? Yada yada yada. Right?
You must be exposed. I mean, because both Shea and I have our share at that band, but at your scale, Kyle, that just must be.
Oh yeah, what's that like?
It must be pretty insane, man.
What's that like? You know, when you get to that level, you know, it's like the amount of products that you sell in a year, even outside of the amps, right? So it's like you've got multiple products, and you're gonna have so much communication about that stuff. How do you deal with that?
A lot of email, yeah.
Is it you that does it?
I mentioned that I've been working till 6 a.m. right?
This is it. I
do have some help with some of the, you know, I typically have some help with some of the basic kind of support questions and that kind of stuff, but that help is also stretched thin, you know, like, even though we're busy, you know, with the downturn of the economy, especially in music products. My buddy Derek was quoting shit to me the other night that's just scary. You know, 65% down. You know, 35% of what it was, like, is what we're at right now. You know, so we're all making $35 instead of $100. You know, that is troubling, and with that comes scaling back a little bit and just adjusting and adapting and trying to push forward through the industry and trying to figure out how we can, revitalize things a little bit. And some of that is just, the help gets less. You have less help, you can afford less help or whatever. And fortunately, those sorts of questions don't come crazy often, but they do come, and it is a relief actually when it's just that, and not one more thing that is added to the to-do list of like a repair or another thing we have to ship back or
I mean,
whatever.
the guys, the thing about in the amp world, I mean, they love new shit, man. Those guys love new shit. And it's like you can always make a new product and add that to the line, and
people
whatever.
do like new stuff, man, and they like to be the first ones to get it as well.
Yeah.
I think for a business like ours, that is important. And ultimately, though, the business evolves from that, because like the situation we're in right now is that we have a huge product base, but still, huge product base as far as like,
it's
5
huge.
pedals, 7 amps,
huge.
power amps, cabinets, all the things, cables, whatever. But the guitar industry as a whole ecosystem, how many guitar players actually know who KSR is?
I would say a lot. I think a lot.
Well, maybe in your subset that
in my world, fucking everybody does. But
it depends on it would depend on the genre of player, right? Like if you think about the whole addressable market,
that's the problem. So you have, everybody knows who Marshall. Everybody knows who Marshall is. Everybody knows who Crate was. Everybody knows, who Fender is. Whatever. Those are ubiquitous brands, and I think the goal is to get to a level where you're like, a ubiquitous brand, but you don't have to constantly make a new product every 6 months in order to survive. Because when you're just making a new product and that's when you get your sales, you're just reselling it to the same people that you're already a fan of your products, which is fine. It's all fine, but then it's a finite growth. So I think the bigger growth is to try to get beyond your fan base and create new fans, and that's the hard part. That's the part where we've run up against, I think, is where we've got a fan base and everybody has everything they want of ours, or if they don't have it, they're saving for it or trying to get it, but it's not like a regular 5 amps a day or just going out the door kind of thing. But if you're able to grow the brand into a larger subset of fans that are not, because a lot of our fans are also super fans. They're boutique fans. They're like the guys that, like you said, like the new thing. They're the guys that are buying the thing and then reselling it 3 weeks later, or they're reselling it eventually because they're just constantly rotating gear. Mm-hmm. And that fan base it's not sustainable for a larger business. It's
probably
only
not. It's probably not.
It's good for a smaller, unique and boutique growing business. I
think that this platform right here is really the best thing, like YouTube, for selling, like getting outside of that ecosystem that you're talking about. Like YouTube is probably the best place to do that outside of anything else.
It's critical in the and yeah, I mean, for me, it's been the only way to.
Right.
I mean, that's how I started. I started my business right here. I mean, I wouldn't be in business if it wasn't for YouTube.
100% the same.
And
we've got a question here about
aptly named platform as well.
What's that?
It's an aptly named platform as well.
Question here about the Tommy Focuson, if I'm pronouncing that correctly, 5-stage Marshall mods. You guys familiar with that at all? I believe
familiar with him
in the circus, but
familiar with him for sure. I know that he is Henrik Hermansson's mentor, I think.
That's right.
gonna say,
that's the only thing I know about him, and I've never seen the circuits or anything. I'm
He
not
does.
sure what they're doing.
Yeah, you know, it's probably good, man. I would think it's probably good. I like what he does. He puts a little badge on it that says it's like a heart surgery badge. I forget what it says, but it's pretty cool. But
have you seen one of his modded amps, Shea?
Never had one through. Definitely have had guys that sent me stuff and say, "Hey, I want it to sound like his stuff." And I don't know where those boys are over there.
It's like Sweden
Denmark or
like
Sweden or something like that.
Yeah,
I'm not quite sure. But I mean, he's that guy's been doing his thing for quite a while, man. He's been modding for a long time. There was I thought there was a band a long time ago that was playing his amps that made them kind of famous, but I can't remember it now.
Clint, I know Clint posted in the chat earlier, and he said, you know, 3 of my favorite amp builders on one chat. So, cheers to you.
Clint, Clint. Yeah, he's a good dude.
He's a great dude, and he's got I think he's got one of each of our amps, which is awesome. He's going to send you a 6505, man. So.
Oh yeah, so Hermanson, he's in Sweden.
Sweden, okay.
Sure.
Yeah, he's Sweden. Yeah.
I've always seen this. Like I've seen the videos. It sounds cool. He's always got like that immediate, tight, like aggressive response kind of sound. It fits his playing perfectly.
It's different in the room. I mean, I've had his amps in here. I know Jason has too. We've talked about them. It's a little different in the room, but it's a very good circuit. I think what his work is extremely good. Like his workmanship inside of the amp is extremely good, like over the top good.
Agree.
So give him a whole fucking 10 out of 10 out of that. But you know, I think one thing about his stuff is people think that they're just absolute insane gain monsters, and I don't think that's true. I don't think that they're really as psycho as they're, you know, people say on the forums and stuff. But yeah, super good.
It's good sounding amp, man. It's like it's got a kind of it's got a very thick mid range, but not in any kind of annoying way. It's a, you know, pleasing kind of.
I would say it sounds. I mean, I think his stuff kind of is in the Engel realm as far as sound goes. I mean, that's just my own opinion about it. He's got different mods, but he did say one thing, and you know, I don't want to shit on him at all, but I will say this: he made a video that said the best JCM 800 or the best sounding JCM 800 ever, and it was his amp, and I was like, ugh, I don't know if it's a little much, dude.
A little bit forward.
Yeah, it's a little forward, man. I mean, maybe it's different over there in Sweden, but we can't do that shit here in the States.
You would not do it in Australia, I'll tell you. You wouldn't do it here, man. That is outside the accepted cultural limits for sure. Yeah, he like the thing that, and I said to you,
guy. I've talked to him before. Fucking
right. I haven't, and I mean, I agree everything you said about the workmanship and everything. Just like, man, just insanely great. If he hasn't already, Henrik should launch his own production amp. 100%, right?
I think it's been in the works. He's.
I hope he does.
Yeah,
because that would be cool. You know, like, because there's a point, I guess, where you, and we've probably all done this in some way or shape or another, right? When you mod beyond the scope of the donor amp, and it's kind of no longer that amp; it's something different. You know, might still have the badge on it and so on, but you know, the original Marshall badge or whatever it is that you're taking in, but his circuit is unique enough and killer enough that it should have its own brand.
It is unique in a way that where, you know, you can definitely, like, when I went through the circuit, I'm like, oh, this boy definitely fucking took a deca box through here and took this. You know, the values are very different than other things, so it is a unique circuit, and it does sound good. And I do think that yeah, he's doing well with his business, and I think you should, you know, if you like that, Shea should definitely buy one of his fucking amps.
Yeah, oh yeah.
I think it's cool to like. I was always kind of drawn to the old PAs that he would.
Yeah,
Yeah,
those are sick.
that's
I'm
cool.
like, I'm like, I kind of want to do that just for fun because
Yeah.
it just looks cool. It looks like be fun to do. But
Nobody's ever done that. You know, that was a fucking original idea, right? Nobody's ever turned those high gain things into
the old PA head, yeah.
yeah, those those old PAs.
So Matt Nolan is
Hey, Matty.
is texting me.
And he's like, hey, you guys should talk to the fucking chat. You guys are just fucking rattling on.
Yeah, he said we're a bunch of self-serving assholes. No,
Yeah.
I'm trying to.
Sorry.
I'm trying to push through these questions.
So hey, if you want to buy a KSR amp, talk to Matt Nolan in Australia.
Yeah, do that. Matt's a top guy, and
I'll preface it with if you're in Australia and you want to buy a KSR amp, talk to Matt.
You actually, that night that we went out, you actually FaceTimed him at the bar when we were at the tail end, and I just remember him like we were passing around, and he just going.
That's about right.
He was just going, "Oh man,
yeah,
these boys are into it now."
He was also very very envious. He was not there.
Cool, he's a cool dude. Oh, I could tell.
He was like, "Oh my god, I wish I was there." So we've got a question here from Chipworks to you, Shea, and he's got one of your Origin 50s that you modded, revision 2, final revision.
Yeah.
Totally amazing. And the question is about the UFO switch, because you have the little UFO icon or whatever. To the left, it's super compressed, and to the right, it's very open. Could it be made? I think the question is, could it be made into a 3-way? So there's a middle ground.
Yeah, it could be. All you would have to do is take both of it's an on switch, so you would only have to take both of the components off of that switch and then stick them on, you know, an on switch. But
well, it depends what the components do. What does the off do?
There is no off on this one, so this amp has clipping on both ways.
Oh, so
it's clipping. Yeah, it's clipping both ways. There is no off clipping, but
so it'll get louder and less gain. That's what.
Yeah.
You could have an off position and lift the grounds on those. Diodes, right? But,
but that's just the reason that I don't normally do those 3-way switches with no clipping in between is, for one, the taper.
100%
on the master volume is it just doesn't. It's like
changes it. Right?
Yeah, it doesn't. It's like when I do this stuff, I change the taper on the master volume when the clipping is always in. Now, if you do that without it, you could have the amp could be way too fucking bright or other stuff. It's just.
Are you doing like the Jose kind of stuff where you're like feeding the tone stack with the master volume? So you have a
pre-tone. Yeah, this amp is a pre-tone stack master volume.
Oh yeah, so I mean that fucks everything up. You have that high impedance. But it maybe throw a well, I mean, I guess that impedance is part of the response of it, but you could screw around and throw a FET-based cathode follower in there for the halberd or something that kicks on in a different position. It doesn't have the switch doesn't have to work just mechanically. You could have the switch actually operate, other things like relays or whatever. So then you have different things happening depending on where your switch is at. But I just got the dreaded AirPod.
Oh no! We knew that was it. I knew that was going to happen.
You can do them one at a time. We got a question here for you, Kyle. If you can still hear it,
I'm on intermission right now.
All right, dude.
Left in, so I'm good.
You've probably been asked this, but what was the amp that made you go, "I like that, but I wish it did X"? It's probably the original
5150.
Oh, the 5150.
So the Mesa, the dual rectifier. Here's what happened. So the dual rectifier died. I didn't get to fixing it right away because I naturally am busy as frick all the time. And my drummer had a 5150 original block letter, and he brought it in, and that's what I played in rehearsal and stuff. I'm like, this amp's amazing. It's the first time I ever played one. It was fantastic, but very limited with switching, clean, crunch, lead. You couldn't do that. You just had clean or crunch and lead. And so I lived on that. I really wanted just the like a better clean and a crunch, and I was fine. And then maybe a lead once in a while. But playing that amp really kind of helped me appreciate features and stuff. And then the rectifier had features but didn't have the sound. And that's where I was kind of stuck. But the rectifier features still I wasn't real happy with. Like I hated how the modern mode, got really loud, and I hated how the solo volume control didn't work the way I wanted it to, and that sort of thing. So that really those two amps are what drove me to not only pursue other sounds but to pursue features. And our amps, like, kind of maybe to our detriment in a way, because I never know how to answer the question when somebody asks, like, I just want your most brutal high gain amp, what is it? I'm like, well, they all are. What do you want it to do? Do you want a 51 amp? Do you want an amp with MIDI? Do you want a million different variations of a core sound, or a sound that can do a number of different things? Like, what do you want? And our amps are kind of a lot of similar tonal DNA with different feature sets and different form factors. And I think in the future too, I'm going to have a lot more variation in terms of tones, like, so I can actually answer that question and be like, you want brutal shit, KSR. You want mid-gain stuff, it might be a different brand. We might have another brand.
Yeah, nice. But back to what we were talking before about the total addressable market and accessing different parts of that, right? Without necessarily diluting the brand that you've got.
And trying to re-educate people about the brand.
Yeah, kind of related question here, man, which is, hey Kyle, what's going down in Middletown? Yeah,
what's going down Middletown?
Yeah, you're bringing back memories.
Working 24 hours a day.
You're bringing back memories for me, Sam. When are you starting on the British Voice amp?
Speaking of the devil, huh? So Sam actually came here and interviewed, and Sam, we need to talk still, but like we haven't hired anybody, don't worry.
Shit, you almost hired somebody at the bar that night. Okay, I'm sorry. I don't want to go. I don't even want to go into that. Go ahead.
I forgot about that too. You did too.
I mean, what happens at the bar stays at the bar, right? Sorry, who knows? Who knows when we get on that path? I think the reason we all got along so well that night is we were all very very like-minded in the sense that we've never met a stranger. So
right, yeah, I can make a friend at a bar pretty quickly.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and we all did. And we all did. Yeah.
But no, the British Voice amp. I mean, technically, the Juno is my original take on like what a modern hot rodded British amp would be, but it's totally not. It's not like what you'd expect when you plug into a Cameron or a Friedman or whatever. It's like, okay, if you were to take that vein of ideas and then take it to a modern state, that's what the Juno is. I may take a step back at some point and do something more traditionally voiced, but with some more modern features, or it's very stripped back, but it has more my voice in a stripped back sense. That's where I need to kind of dial in that, and I need to decide, is it going to be KSR or is it going to be something else, because I may start another brand that is more focused on a different subset, a different genre of player, because we're so typecast, not by my design at all. It just happened because of our
You
stuff.
see, Ben's actually chipped in here and said that yeah, Juno is British voice. You just got to turn it up and use the correct speakers and cab. So,
he was just here today. Was it Ben Potter?
Yeah, Ben Potter. Yeah.
Okay. This chat I haven't kept up with. I see. I need to make a shout out too at some point to some people in the chat. But yeah, Ben was just here today, and he actually played the Juno prototype, the first one I made in 2018.
Oh wow, killer!
And you guys might have played it too, or you at least saw it. It's that silver-faced Juno that was up front, and he played it, and he had it cranked up in the back, and he's like, "All right, I get it. I never played it loud enough."
It's something like that. Yeah,
that's the secret, right?
But it wasn't the amp per se. It was just the fact that it doesn't play it loud. So
I thought actually, I thought the same way about Jason's amp when I was the first batch that I was building last year. It's different than what I do. So I hadn't played something like that in a while. I was building it and I was putting it through its paces and kind of playing it at a lower volume. But then when I turned it up a little bit, I was like, oh shit, this fucker fucking screams when you turn it up. I mean, it felt so good, man. So some amps are just like that. And it's not that it sounded bad low. It sounded great with the volume down, but it sounded fucking insane with it up.
Mm-hmm.
Different experience, right? Like we were saying before about having, sometimes a bit of volume is not bad. So Lyle's laying down the challenge here, guys. Send him an amp, stick it on the channel.
He'll be like, yeah, look at this piece of shit right here. No, I'm joking.
So I would love to hear. I would love to hear Lyle's opinion of the Orion, because there's one piece of coax in it that's like an inch long, and I don't even think that's necessary. The rest is PCBs and ribbon cables. So,
well, man, this is good, right?
He is critical. He is critical, and there's nothing wrong with criticism.
It's a different, like Lyle's angle is obviously on long-term durability, serviceability, that kind of stuff, right? So look, it's because it's always like as a designer and so on, and Kyle, I know we talked a lot about this when I was over, right? Which is like trying, striving for that balance between convenience of construction, but kind of serviceability over the long term and so on, and getting that balance right. But man, PCBs all the way, man. Freaking love them.
I mean, it's the only way to do it nowadays with any sort of repeatability and production friendliness. But and further on, like just being able to build some or engineer something to where it's easy to build. I mean, that is the biggest challenge for an engineer, and then have it also be serviceable. And that's where a lot of companies fail is the serviceability. So that's where I would hope that he would at least see that it's not hard to take apart, and he could see how I had that in mind when when I was designing it. But the main thing is it's easy to build and it's easy to service when needed. But
it's that kind of modular.
It lasts a long time, but we don't know how long anything lasts until we build it and let it sit on the shelf for 10 years or shipped around for 10 years.
Absolutely.
But all we can do is do our best to plan for that. And like
I'm with you, 100%.
With the Orion stuff, even though I've got connectors in it, like ribbon cables and that kind of shit, I only buy name brand, ribbon cable connectors. I only buy name brand ribbon cable. I don't buy shit off Alibaba. I'm buying Tyco, I'm buying 3M, I'm buying,
same.
FCI or whatever, or Amphenol. I'm buying name brand stuff, so it's in gold plated or whatever. You have confidence in these connections.
Consistency is a major thing in our realm. Like, just having everything being like all the parts being consistent and not like buying them from actual, places that have good QC departments and all that shit's super important, man.
Well,
There's nothing worse than making 2 amps that sound different and that's the same.
Yeah.
I mean, that's can't do that.
Like Alibaba didn't exist before I started building amps, and I was always the one to buy things from reputable vendors, Mauser, DigiKey, Arrow, those sorts of places, not trying to find the lowest price I can find from some eBay person in China,
Right.
or Alibaba or whatever. Even though like stuff you can get for the 10th the price, but it's not worth it when you're building a $3,000 product. Like,
exactly,
don't skimp on a few bucks.
Exactly.
Correct,
exactly.
man. Correct.
Exactly.
Mojo Torch says, hi Kyle, Greg Riley here. And
Greg.
Gabriel Gray says, I wonder if Kyle even knows I'm here.
So he's the brother of my girlfriend.
Yeah, man.
And it's funny because he knew who I was before my girlfriend did. So it's always funny.
Oh, is that how you got linked up?
No, when we met on a dating app, and
shit.
Eventually he found out that she was dating a dude from Ohio that builds amps, and he said, "Oh, really? Who?" And she said, "Oh, I know that. I know him. KSR. Yeah, I know that."
He's that guy.
Well, he's stoked.
He's
like, fuck yeah, date my sister. Fuck yeah.
Try and blast through some of these questions, guys. Power tube saturation, real or myth?
I say myth.
Yeah. I think in the modern era,
I don't like the harmonics that come out of power tube distortion. I think what people call power tube distortion is actually phase inverter distortion.
Yes.
Is it? The phase inverter doesn't have the headroom to drive the power tubes beyond where they truly saturate. Like if you just have a 12AX7 driving a quad of power tubes, that plate is so loaded by the time it gets up there that it's distorted. That's why you have a post phase inverter master volume.
Yeah.
That's the last gain stage in an old Marshall when you crank it.
100%.
I've noticed, if you guys, I know Jason does this, using the reactive loads with the IRs, trying to capture a tone. If you turn an amp up, I mean, they sound so much the same when you turn them up really fucking high, any kind of amp. So that might be true, man.
You lose dynamic range.
Yeah. Lot of shit going on in the preamp, man.
This is and that's certainly I mean, I think you make a good point there, Kyle. Stormlight Architect, $2 super chat. Thanks, brother. Helps pay for the StreamYard bill. Headfirst KSR Monomyth Synergy modules, please. Yeah, man, that's
hit us up, pay us money. Let's do it.
We got to have a chat to Boutique Amps about getting in on the Synergy caper.
I'd make one. Shit.
It's hard though, right? Because you've got a similar platform and then different preamps, and it's really hard to make them all sound different. I've heard various reports, anecdotally.
I don't know too much about the Synergy
back
stuff.
then, right? So you got a preamp modules, but you're going into the same. It's the same power amp, right? So
it's a whole ecosystem, that makes the sound, and it's really hard to have a neutral ecosystem in the power section and then have a variable preamp drastically change the sound, because it's all those things have to change. It's a great idea. It's a great concept. I love it. But
you definitely cannot do I probably could not make one, honestly, because I do some power amp stuff with my mods that add quite a bit, so probably couldn't do it.
Anthony says, with an Obsidian as my gateway, what would be a good KSR to cut my teeth on? Cheers, bro.
That would depend on what you like and don't like about this Obsidian.
Yeah, good response. Yeah.
So the Obsidian is inherently more saturated and aggressive than our stuff. Our stuff's a little smoother and a little more tamed. I mean, the Obsidian with the lead channel and gain 9 o'clock is like ours at 12 or 1 o'clock. It's just there's so much gain on tap, and it's great. It feels great to play. It's a lot of fun. I love that amp. It's not for everybody though. Just like our stuff's not for everybody. Our stuff's typically a little more dry and a little more responsive.
I've never played any of the Omega stuff. I'd love to.
I had the experience. So Mike Smith, awesome dude, right? Took me backstage when Slipknot came here. He was here with Mick Thompson, of course, which led to probably heard me tell the story on the last stream, right? Led to the connection with Jim Root and the Alta. But before the gig, I actually got to play just for about 3 minutes or so, Mick's rig through his the Obsidian rig and into this ISO cab. So he's actually playing into a 4x12 that was Mike, but in a big kind of ISO cab roadbox thing. And so it was loud enough that I could hear it and feel it, because it's just like literally sitting in Mike's booth, And what I remember about that, Kyle, was it was just super greasy to play. Like it was like, oh man, this is like, I had to literally hand the guitar.
I love greasy.
Take this away now, man. It's like it's too much.
Out of any of the buzzwords in the guitar community, greasy is my favorite one. I love greasy.
It was killer. It was so much fun. I was like, oh man, you got to take this off me because I won't be able to hand it back.
Yeah, I mean, because there's a little bit more bounce. There's a little bit more. While it can be tight, it's just inherently a little bit looser. It sounds tight, but it's still looser, and that's where the greasiness comes from.
Yeah,
it all depends on interstage coupling and where it is in the
man, for sure, 100%. Matt's back on the chat. Top notch info from 3 of the best minds in the game. Look at that. I'm gonna buy you a beer next time I see you, Matty.
To your question earlier about the solid state stuff and parallels. I mean, solid state stuff. The biggest mistake people make is interstage coupling between points because solid state stuff reacts so differently than tube stuff. It does not like low end at all. Right. So you have to do all kinds of filtering throughout the solid state realm to keep those gain elements from saturating in an unpleasant way. So it's interesting.
It is. Hey, here's a I think this is a reference to the collaboration name Headmyth.
Oh shit!
Not bad.
Not bad. Put that one. I still like Shason. Shason is the best.
Yes. Lyle's confirming that he's in Memphis and it's about 6 hours away from.
God,
right?
The thing that sucks about these talks, and I just want to say sorry to all the guys in the chat. It's just so hard to keep up with it. I mean, this question, this is from a while ago, and it sucks.
It is. I'm doing my best.
No, well, you're doing fine. It's just like there's only so much you can do, right?
Yeah. Look, it's all good. Like I think the guys are. Well, we've still got 70.
Yeah. We've
still got 70 online, and so no one's really dropped off. So.
No, we said his name.
Yeah, Steve.
I think it's Grindrod, not Grindrad. I'm not sure.
Grindrad. So he was the guy. He was the Marshall guy that did the 2203, right? Is that right?
He did the 2203. Yeah, I think so. Yes, that's it.
I think Grindrad is a different guy.
I know he's got the name, but I think he's living in China right now. So it would be so amazing to talk to that guy. I mean, Jesus,
we'll get him on the
legend, man. But
get him on the stream.
If he's in China, probably not.
Well, go through VPN.
He might be hit to that.
Yeah, you're probably right about that. There you go, Shea. It's the new Fort and Gower, man. Just
okay. What? I couldn't think of anything fucking.
I
couldn't think of anything smart to say off the top there. It's whatever. It's a little unlike that.
just like that, but better. Is that what you're gonna say?
No, I'm not gonna say anything about that. I'm
No,
not,
I know,
definitely
man.
not here to say. I mean, when we do these streams,
it's just fun. That's a fun passion project because, like, for the amount of work that we have done together over a number of years now, we've never collaborated on a circuit. So this is the first time, and it's been fun, man. It's been really
well. You designed, I mean, shit. Before I was your first production amp design, it's like when I reached out to you about designing the skeleton key. Yeah, I mean, I didn't even know you at all. I just saw you on the forums, and I took a big gamble working with you. And boy, that fucker paid off, man. Became extremely good friends, and not all that stuff works out, but yeah.
Oh man, it's worked out. It's worked out beautifully.
And you're fucking good, man. The thing is, I know Kyle's good too. Jason, we're probably talking to probably two of the best PCB designers in the damn world right now when it comes to guitar amps. Honestly, if we're being really honest about it, yeah, you guys are fucking good, man, and it's so rare.
Thanks, brother.
It's PCB design is an art form, and it's a fun art. It's only fun though if you don't have a deadline.
Yeah. There is nothing quite like that first firing that amp for the first time. I mean, anyone who's built a kit, right, or a DIY amp, and I know a bunch of guys that are in this chat will be there because they are hobby builders and so on. There's nothing quite like that first power on, and you get noise out of that thing. Well, when you've actually designed the PCB and you do that, it's another whole, we're getting nerdy here, right? But it's a level of excitement. It's cool, man. I love it.
I mean, the first time you put that all together and it's a delayed gratification thing. So you work on the design for a while, you do the layout for a while, you order the boards, you wait for a while, you build them.
Yes.
And then you finally hear it, after you spent all that time. And then what happens when you first turn that on? That is the point that I enjoy the most. That anticipation of is it gonna blow up, fail, or work? And I remember, funny anecdote, funny story, whatever. The Eris, when I did a lot of things before that as very modular. So I was trying to design boards that would work in 3 different products or all the products or whatever. The Eris is the first one I designed a preamp board specifically for that amp, with everything all contained on one board except for the power tubes and the foot switch switching module and stuff. And that preamp board, built it all up, got it. I mean, the whole amp was almost done. I just started firing it up, and I was in Lafayette still at the time, and my parents came to visit, and they are knocking on the door as I'm flipping the switch to turn it on. And I turn it on, and I hear this moo, just nothing but 60 hertz hum. I qualified the circuit, and I'm like, oh shit, it's all working, it's great, everything's good. But I did not see the 60 hertz hum on my scope because I'm tuned into 1 kilohertz. I just didn't see that 60 hertz overlay that was going on.
Yep.
And I'm like, everything's great. Fuck yeah, I'm gonna play this amp really quick. I'm gonna play 3 chords, and I'm gonna go answer the door. My parents. And I flip it on, and it's just hum, and I'm like, oh no. And then turn it off real quick, go up, get my parents, and I immediately take my dad. My dad's like, oh, what's going on? I'm like, I'm firing up this amp right now. I just got to see what's going on. And he came downstairs with me. I turned it on. I'm working through it, and all lo and behold, all it was, I forgot a fucking ground connection between my accessory power supply.
I already knew it.
My
always, man.
When you said that, that's the first thing I thought of.
The B plus and all the stuff. Right, so I had this floating, AC supply just sitting there transmitting 60 hertz into my entire circuit.
I've done it, man.
And I'm like, or 120 hertz, I guess, at that point. But so yeah. I connected the ground. The amp was dead fucking silent. I'm like, all right, it works.
It's satisfying, man. This is why we do it, right? This is one of the
totally satisfying. And I think that Eris circuit board, it's not on Rev A, but I think it's like Rev B. I mean, it was so close to being perfect on the first go that I was very proud of that. And then Orthos, Juno, all those were born off that design. And I think Juno is still on Rev A. Like I did that board and I didn't change anything.
That's wicked, man. Yeah. That's really cool because inevitably I always tweak something. I've actually had a number of revisions of the Alta, but not to change the circuit, but to change the construction, make it a little bit easier, like
you see those mechanical things that you're like, oh, just scoot this over a little bit, it'll be better, and then of course that is like a ripple effect. You got to scoot that over, you got to
100%. Yeah. So Stormlight Architect, I think I hit that super chat, which is the KSR headverse. So here's what I'll do, right? When I next speak to Dave, I'll ask him about Synergy, how all that works. He knows all that shit, right? Good to have an iron on the fire there some point. You see, he'll probably say, well, Kyle's at the right level, but you other two aren't.
I don't know Dave real well, but like the first thing I hear in my head when you say that is like, I don't know, you got to talk to Avi.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, if all roads lead to Avi, I'm sure.
So explain to me the super chat stuff. So people pay money to get their
question answered. I mean, if you pay money, basically you're going to get your question answered. I mean, there's so much going on in the chat here.
I mean, we're pretty I think with this, and this is why we're at the 3 hour 10 mark, is like I'm actually trying to get through all the questions. But if you watch live streams with guys that have hundreds of thousands of subscribers, like a Pete Thorne, there's so much noise in the chat that the only way you're going to get a question answered is if you hit it with $5, $10, whatever, and he will definitely.
Plus, our moderator Jason is drinking beer in the daytime, and I'll show you. So shit.
This one was a special occasion, right? I only did it for hit it with it's light beer.
You committed to this.
Like the shit that you're drinking, Shea. It's fucking
It's not as light as Shea's beer.
It's not zombie dust.
No, that's for
sure.
So
KSR, the next boutique amps, yeah, man. You're the BAD of the freaking Midwest, man.
Better in a way, because it's like you have the same production capabilities, and you own it yourself. So I mean, I don't think that anybody, like you're kind of like a unicorn in that way, because taking the DIY thing all the way to that level and continuing and then still owning it. I mean, that's different, right?
Yeah, I've never taken an investor on. So it's all organic growth, time, blood, sweat, and tears. A marriage.
blood, sweat, and tears, and 18 hours of work a day.
Yeah,
man, you've freaking
kids.
You've done the hard yards.
Fuck, that helps, man.
You've done the hard yards, man, and that's awesome.
I'm in a place now though. It's like I've kind of rebooted my life a bit. Not to get too personal, but I went through a long-term relationship and marriage, and got divorced, and kind of reset in the last 3 years, and now I've been with a beautiful, awesome woman for 2.5 years with 2 gorgeous little girls, and it's been a kind of a rebirth, and I'm re-inspired now.
That's fucking good for you, man.
That's cool, man. That's cool.
We were talking just a little bit before the chat, and because we haven't kept in contact too much, but when me and Jason came there, you were living in that apartment in Blue Ash or wherever, and
with your dog.
It was a sick spot. I mean, it was kind of dangerous. It was
cool.
You had a bar beneath your apartment.
You did.
A good bar. You had a good bar beneath your apartment. And
yeah.
Hell yeah.
Yes, she is.
This girl?
Yeah, man. I remember
stepping in your shit with my Red Wing boots on the balcony.
You 100% did, and you squished that poop between the boards and into the
you did
onto the balcony below us.
Oh, fuck. But yeah,
and you got the bar below your apartment with the friendliest, nicest bartender you'll ever meet.
oh my lord, that dude was awesome.
Nice dude, man. There's nice people.
Yeah, I missed that spot. You know, I moved out of there and now living with.
How long's it been? When did you leave there?
I was there 2 years, so I left there.
We were there in what, May? Jason?
May. It was late May.
Yeah, I left like a month or two later.
Oh shit. Okay.
And you know, it was an awesome spot and so much fun, but you know, I grew to the point where I had like 3 places I needed to be. I needed to be at work, at my apartment, and in my girlfriend's house. So
yeah, and she lived in Indianapolis, right?
So, yeah, so I'm splitting my time and running around, and I've got essentially a 2 lives that I'm living, but it's actually fantastic because I can focus on my work, and then I can focus on, you know, family time, like fun, enlightenment, like enrichment. You know, it's like
yeah.
Getting out of the, you know, disconnecting from the business.
It's good, man.
Yeah, like out of the grind into the.
I do that too. I do that too,
you know?
Man.
Sounds like you simplified things a bit, man, which is always good. So
yeah, you know, we get fulfillment from our work, but that only goes so far. You have to have fulfillment and other,
it's
other
true, man,
as well.
Yeah.
So
Lyle's agreeing about the phase inverter distortion, man, not power tubes, and goes on to say, everyone, yeah, give the video a like, brothers. Come on, man.
Well, if I get approval from Lyle, then it's good. Then we're good. I remember like Lyle from Huge Racks. Like he was on Huge Racks a bunch.
All right, that's killer.
I never met the guy. I just know he's knowledgeable and
well, we're gonna send each one of us, and they did commit to sending Lyle an amp for him to review at some point. We've got another super chat from Stormlight Architect. Thanks, man. Can we all agree modern amps, especially $1,000 plus, should come stock with external bias adjustments, MIDI, resonance, and presence? I'm looking at you, Friedman. Okay. Killer Stream, how's the MIDI work?
No. I'm saying no. I'm saying fucking big no to that.
Well, so you know, MIDI's great.
I gotta grab a beer.
MIDI is great and all, but not everybody knows how to use it. Not everybody will use it. So with the Orion, you know, my goal with that was making an amp that was cheap but feature rich and all made in the USA. So when I start adding in MIDI and other things, other forms of complication, then that just slows down the build and increases the cost. You know, yada yada yada. So we already have a pedal called the EX5 that will control like 5 of our products.
Oh wow! Yep.
You know, it's a 5 TRS jacks on it. There's like 10 contact closures, and with that you can control our pedals. You can control all of our amps, and that's, you know, $180, and then you add MIDI capability to all of our non-MIDI products. It's not the same level of MIDI capability as you have with like the Colossus or the Gemini or the Artemis, where you can like control all these little details of
all the different options. But so that'll control like regular TRS switching and so on yeah,
exactly, like, you know, your channel loop, whatever, that kind of stuff. And I went that route just from a minimization standpoint because of how relatively few people use MIDI. Most guys, when they're buying an amp, they're gonna buy it, throw it on top of a cab, maybe plug in a pedal board in front of it, maybe plug directly into it, you know, and be done. So I didn't want to add more to that thing when I was already trying to keep it really affordable. In a 4-channel lunchbox format, you know, affordable, $1,800. But
my problem
I think Go ahead. Sorry.
Go ahead.
No,
you go ahead.
I was just going to talk about the external bias thing.
Yes, that's what I was going to say too. Go ahead.
I'll be interested. I mean, I'm sure Lyle's got a view on this as well, right? Like, I don't know, man. I think if someone can adjust the bias themselves, then you know, the fact, like, if you're at that level of capability, then it probably means that
you can have MIDI on your amp.
You can do it. You could do it the traditional way, right? Open it up and adjust the bias. Maybe you throw 1 ohm resistors on the cathodes or whatever, and so you can make it a bit easier to check or whatever. But putting bias points and adjustments on the outside, I think it's just another thing that someone can screw up, is what I feel about it.
I mean, we're talking about, it's like we deal with guys that, hook up wrong loads on amps and blow fuses, and this is a whole different ball game right here. I don't know if adding that stuff is a good idea or not. It kind of gives more room for somebody fucking shit up. And like just what you said, opening the amp and just doing it like that. If you're going that far, it's probably better.
I think so, man. Like,
Kyle, you probably do you do external bias on your stuff?
Yeah, all of our amps.
Not shitting on anything. I mean, it's just, definitely. It's if you buy an amp with, I think if you buy a tube amp in general, you should educate yourself about all this stuff. And that's
I mean, to a point, right? But I mean, like what I touched on earlier with tube amps and this market, it's a very tolerable market, like where you can buy a product and it fails a month later, 2 months later because of a tube.
Yeah.
And that's something that our consumer has kind of become accustomed to. And Lyle made a point here, like anyone qualified to bias an amp wants to know the plate voltage and doesn't need 1 ohm cathode resistors.
That's true.
Well, that's true, but to give access to the consumer, like I put on the back of our amps, I say assume 460 plate volts, or assume 480 plate volts, or whatever, because in the end it doesn't make a huge difference if you're calculating the bias for 460 or 480. It's close enough. Like the tubes are within range. They're
ballpark.
Ballpark. I mean, we tend to bias our stuff colder. More like 25 milliamps per tube at 460.
No shit.
470.
Yeah, well, that's pretty cool. Yeah, pretty cool.
And it's because of that dynamic range. I like more dynamic range in my power section and being able to have more control with the negative feedback than saturating the power section to where it's biased so hot that it's like it's conducting at 70% and it can only do 30% more or 70% less. So I'm more like, okay, so if we're at 50%, then we can go 50% more, 50%.
I do that with certain tubes.
You get more give and take out of it.
Like the modern JJEL34s, I really disliked those for a long time. And then I found that if you bias them a little colder, that they sound fucking amazing. So, yeah, I mean, there's that too.
Terry said most techs don't even know how to adjust bias properly.
You shouldn't be a tech if you don't know how to do that.
Just saying. Sorry.
And I guess the devil's advocate to that is like, but what is properly, right? Because what happens a lot in our realm of, we have this lore, it's like the lore of, there's a 68K on our input grid that basically fucks your whole amp up if you use a 68K. But people do it still.
You got to do it, man.
Like, anyway, I digress. But there's different things that people do, and it's they're only done because that's what the other guy did. I mean, and I'm not picking.
There's tons of that.
I'm not picking on anybody in particular, but Shea, you said it with another amp. You were talking about the Hermanson stuff, how he must have gone through with a decade box and just tweaked every value because they're all weird.
Yeah.
Case in point, like we all get used to looking at schematics or designs or amps, and we see that familiar 1.5K.
Values.
We see that familiar, 220 on the input stage, or a 330 on this modded Marshall instead of a 220,
Sure.
or whatever. And you see that familiar stuff all over the place, and then 0.68 follow or 0.68 bypass, or 1 microfarad bypass, or
right,
whatever values you want to pull out of your butt, or like
right,
that stuff.
Yeah,
we do pull from it as just we know it works, but you innovate more, I guess, when you step outside of those boxes and think of why that value is defined as that.
What the part's actually doing.
Yeah, like was it only that value because that's just what Jim Marshall had a box of, like
yeah. We touched on this a way back in the stream, right? Which is the thing about not having reference amps to listen to, or the artist that doesn't listen to other music. There's a bit of that.
What's the dog's name again, Kyle?
Hazy, and
Hazy.
I think she has to go potty.
All right, get that dog back in here. Get her own webcam. Let's set her up on 4 here. Let's get her a mic.
She's I think she's ready to go potty. You want to go potty?
Oh shit! You can do an intermission, man.
Yeah, I might need to set my. Actually, I need to charge my right ear.
We're nearly through the chat here, guys.
Are you saying we're almost done, or are you saying that?
How much longer? We're nearly 3.5 hours. So how much longer do you guys want to go?
I haven't even paid attention to the time. All I know is I'm waiting for my dog to pee on my carpet.
Go take her out. Go and do what you need to do. Go ahead, take her out, Kyle.
We'll handle. You go do that. We'll handle this question from from Simon.
Skim through the chat, see if there's anything interesting to talk about.
Oh. So there's a question here from Hoss. Hey brother, good to see you in the chat, man. When I dime a plexi, I can hear loudly the guitar notes coming from inside the head. So this is where you've got.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, your cab's like the way that Simon's studio set up. His cab is like 2 rooms away, pretty much sound isolated. Where is that sound coming from?
Okay, so this is when it's hooked up.
When it's hooked up, sort of like ringing like really loud. So I hear this too, Toss, when I test an amp on a bench with a resistive load, and I put a test signal into it, like even a 1 kilohertz signal in it, I can hear it. It's the output transformer.
Is it?
So the output transformer itself will kind of ring and vibrate, and you can hear it, right? And you can almost feel it if you put your hand on it as well.
Somebody said OT. I honestly, I don't know. I've never done that. I do know that, like, when I hook up to like a load box, like a reactive load, and I crank it up, you can hear.
You can hear the load. You can hear the reactive load do it too. Is it the
reactive load? Because that's the first thing I thought when he asked that question.
Yeah. Well, Simon's got a Boss Wazza, but he's often just running into his 4x12, which is in an ISO kind of room, if you like. But inside the head, man, that is the OT for sure.
Lyle says the OT.
Yeah,
like a little speaker.
It's nothing to be concerned about. It's just the nature of kind of what's happening. Like this, especially with the 5150. So Lyle's probably making a comment there about the quality of the OT, perhaps, that was in those amps. So Simon goes on to say, thank you, Lyle. So with a dime plexi, when I hit a big note, I can see the power tubes lighting up a lot, but there's still no tonal saturation from them. That's just the tubes working, man. That's just current flow. What else we got here, guys?
You did good. I mean, there's so much stuff in the chat. I'm sure it was really hard finding, questions in there. Sorry, boy.
I'm just trying to find whether there's any final questions in here, guys. Terry says, with respect to biasing, there is a way to weed out a high percentage of tube early tube failures. It's taken a few thousand amps to work that out. I wonder what you mean by that, man. I think many of us have invested in tube testers and so on, but I haven't heard of a technique around biasing to weed out potential early tube failures. So that's interesting.
I mean, the best thing what we do is just test them before they go inside the amp, and then bias them up, and then let them burn in for a while, and then test them again. We don't put out, like, me and Jason don't put out a shit ton of amps, so we do a lot of extra testing as far as that realm goes.
You got to do it.
Yeah.
Raphael says, "Hey, man. So I've worked on a couple of amps for Raf, and he's a coffee roaster. If Leon Todd's still in the chat, and I saw you in here, brother. We've got this ongoing. Too strong to call it a feud, more like a discussion about where the best coffee is.
You guys got this coffee thing going on, don't you?
What the fuck is this coffee? He was freaking posting in the chat before. So anyway,
I've heard about this.
What the fuck is it? I don't know, man. It's friggin' anything to create the conversation. Yeah, man. Hey, so Raf, you sent me some coffee, man. I appreciate that. It was freaking killer. You should post whatever I can't remember the name of your company, man, but post it in the chat because you make killer stuff.
Definitely. From me, hi to Leon. He makes fucking killer YouTube videos. That dude,
he does.
That dude seems like a fucking rad dude. I mean, I would fucking definitely hang out with that dude.
Yeah, he's a cool cat, man. I mean, he lives on the other side of the country from me.
So you guys look kind of pretty far away. Well, Australia is fucking huge.
It's kind of like, like it would be, I don't know, man. It's like
it's damn near the size of the United States.
Yeah, it is like landmass.
The body of land.
Like, someone in LA and someone in New York, almost. It's kind of like that. That's how far it is. Maybe not quite that far, but it's not far off it.
Yeah.
It's a long way, but he does come out.
How many hours away on a drive?
Couple of days.
Fucking couple of days. Oh shit.
Yeah. You couldn't drive it. You can't drive it in one go.
He's far away.
It's like, I mean, I've never done that drive, right? But most
you guys
people
are still
do it.
Fucking Kiwis, though, so you got that. You got that fucking. You got that going on.
Yeah, it's like it's a near 5-hour flight, something like that.
Wow, that's crazy, isn't it?
It's a long way away, man.
How many production?
Here's the question: How many production Monomyth and Headfirst amps are in the wild? So, probably all up for me. Probably, I don't know, man, 50 odd, something like 50? That. All told, not just altas, but everything.
Okay,
I'd say. Yeah.
Skeleton keys, 45. Yeah, 45. I did 10 the first year, 25 the second year. Oh, actually, there's more. Sorry. 10 the first year, 25 the second year. And then this year, I've done 16. So, yeah. Around 50-ish.
And Ben Potter says it would be badass if Shea and Kyle collabed on a badass hot rodded Marshall design. Yeah, man, that would be fucking killer.
We're already working on it.
No,
don't worry. We're already working on this. We've been chatting about it. We're already working on it.
Yeah, do it, man. Just don't leave me out of it. Cut me in on the action. All right, guys. It's 3 hours 30, and we're at the end of the chat and all of the questions. So, I think it's time to end this.
Yeah, it's a good time. We spent a while. So, dude, all you guys in the chat. So sorry we didn't get to you as much as we did this shit with Dave too. I mean, it's just the way this thing goes.
Yeah, look, I think at the end of the day, we got. We probably spent an hour or so in kind of general chit chat, but man, we had a solid 2.5 on the comments in the chat. So I hope the guys are,
hopefully,
got all your questions in.
Hopefully, you guys, like to hang out and fucking be entertained with fucking couple knuckleheads, few knuckleheads, fucking
three knuckleheads. Yeah. Hey, thanks for hanging in there, Lyle. It's good to have you in the chat, man. And
I just realized I was muted too. I'm sitting here.
Oh, you're good. You're good.
It's a good thing I did not successfully interject, because this chat would last another 30 minutes.
Oh shit, he wants to keep going. Oh fuck. I've got more beer in the fridge.
Hey, Shea.
Yeah.
Shea. All I have to say is that the Aussie boy here, he's the one that's like midday right now.
I know.
Yeah,
and he's the one that wants to end the chat. I mean,
I'll be real honest. Fuck, man, I was kind of steamed out when we started this chat. I worked all day, and then had my daughter, but this gave me a second win. So if you guys just want to go to the morning, no problem. I got enough beer in the fridge. It's fine.
I think the goal should be our morning.
Our morning, his evening.
Yeah.
We'll do it. We'll figure out the time zones, man.
Oh god, we'll be talking about fucking. By the time we get there, we'll be talking about GI Joes and shit.
Well, the first thing I thought when you said that was philosophy, but
Oh, we can always go there. That's always
to each our own.
Yeah, we can always go there.
I mean, I think the drunker and longer conversations go, the more philosophical they should become. If they don't, then there's something wrong.
That or GI Joes. Yeah,
I think we covered a good amount of that ground. All right, guys. Hey, thanks for tuning in. Stay on the line, guys. We'll have
a beer after.
We'll have a chat once we get off. Yeah. Hang on. Thanks for tuning in, guys, and I'll see you next week. I think Dave might come back on next week, so we'll see.
Thanks for being here, guys. Appreciate it.
Cheers.